Everybody's got podcasts. My podcasts have names.
The demons.
Demons. We're a couple demons.
That's the opening line of the film, right? Or the opening voiceover. It's the end of the opening voiceover.
Right.
And then the title rushes towards us or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. We're a couple, we're like the Wendell and Wild of podcasting.
Sure. And that we're like annoying little guys.
Yeah, demonic.
Who live in someone's hair. Right. Yeah.
We're going to talk about this right before we start recording. Just the way scheduling stuff shakes out, new releases and what have you. Like, at first we thought, oh, we'll do Selick at the end of the year and we'll like time it out around when Wendell Wild's coming out, and then things shift around and you're like, oh, this episode's going to come out 3 months after the movie comes out. Will that be annoying that we're like getting to it so late? And it does feel like this movie it came out in October. We're recording right now in December. The episode will drop in January. I would say this movie has already been forgotten. I don't think most people are aware that it existed in the first place.
Yeah, forgotten is almost the wrong word. How can you forget something you never knew existed?
Right. Our episode coming out 3 months after this movie was released on Netflix.
It was on a very popular streaming service.
I think ultimately might function as a reclamation project.
Yeah. I don't want to point any fingers at anybody because I don't know who made this decision.
Yeah.
But it felt like it was almost illegal to reference that this film was coming out.
Bizarre.
Like that it was like some kind of like guarded secret.
And not only that, but it was like, it does feel like Selick did the rounds. Selick went and did a lot of live events.
There was stuff.
Q&As, talks,
it
festivals.
Had a festival premiere.
It did a lot of interviews, and most of those interviews seemed to be buttressing more. It's the anniversary of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, and look, I'm among the culprits here. I didn't write about this movie partly because of the problem of that I keep running into of like I'm like, when do I cover this?
Right.
Like it's out, but it's like barely out. To what extent is it out?
Theatrical release.
Should I wait for the streaming release? And then the streaming release comes around and you're kind of like, is this too late? No one's talking about it. Like such a weird situation.
It also it played at Toronto, but was one of those movies that feels like, even though you liked it, all our other friends who saw it with you liked it.
Yeah, and I forgot about that. I did include it in my Toronto writing. Yes.
Right. But you were like, that's one of 5 movies you saw that day. You see 20 movies in 5 days.
Well, we're going to talk
David,
about it.
I'm laying you up here.
You are setting me up. Welcome. Introduce our show.
It's called Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who experience massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes those checks clear, sometimes they bounce. Baby, here's a film where I don't even know how to define where this film exists.
This is the increasing situation with contemporary streaming releases where I'm like, seems kind of like a bounce, but I mean, if the whole financing model is bouncing.
Right.
So it's a bounce within a bounce. This is the end of our Henry Selick miniseries.
Ben Hosley's The Podmare Before Castmas.
A good old time that we have had covering the career of a great animator.
Yeah. And I was saying this to someone today. I don't know if you've had this experience, but when people ask me, so what director are you covering now? Or in the months leading up to this, what director are you covering next? And I'd say Henry Selick, and they would tilt their head and say, who? It does really feel like the Burton thing is a shadow he will never come out from under.
He will never come out from under it. But yes, I would do like, Selick. And they'd be like, blank face. And I'd be like, he has a new movie coming out, blank face. And I'd be like, he's the guy who did Nightmare Before Christmas. And they're like, Tim Burton? Selick. Henry Selick.
I got that so many times.
And then I would do he did James and the Giant Peach and Coraline. And they'd be like, oh, those were all the same guy.
That's the exact conversation.
Right. Yeah.
So I do feel like we did a little good by making people think about these 5 movies.
I don't bring up Monkey Bone at all in this conversation usually. Well, but maybe I build to that eventually.
When I bring up Monkey Bone, they're like, how do I not know about that movie existing?
It's another one that it was sort of a federal law.
And you're like, and it lost $100 million, and it stars the actor that we're all revisiting the career of right now.
Right, but no one's like, Brendan, let's go through. Let's talk School Ties, With Honors, Encino Man, The Mummy. No one's like, Monkey Bone. You remember that one?
It truly feels like the one that is being skipped. I feel like Furry Vengeance comes up in conversation more than Monkey Bone as part of the Renaissance or whatever the fuck we're calling it.
Yes, this is the last film of Henry Selick's career. I hope it's not the last in totality.
No,
it's his most recent effort.
Here's the thing. Like, even if this movie you cannot call it a success in terms of the public perception, right?
Sure.
It's not winning critics awards. It
Not
barely
really.
got reviewed, and it doesn't feel like most people know it exists. I do think it still basically operates as a comeback for Selick, just in that, like, he finished a fucking movie and it was released. I think it might make it easier for him to get the next thing made.
And it was also not like a monkey bone thing where it was slammed.
No.
Maybe the reviews were a little tepid, or maybe the reception was just in general a little quiet.
I think the reviews were largely good. It just feels like people didn't cover it that much.
Yeah. I feel like the reaction was generally like, good.
Happy to
I
have him
have some
back.
notes, but
Right.
Well, our reaction is happy to have him back.
Yeah, I like this movie a lot.
Yes.
I rank it probably we'll do our rankings.
Yeah, we can do all that later.
Yeah. But David, most importantly, as I said before, you saw this movie at the Toronto International Film Festival.
I did.
TIFF.
Where it premiered
Yes.
on September 11th. Ooh.
Oh no.
I did not see it at the premiere screening. I saw it at a press screening that I think was maybe a day or two later.
Now you have been building up to me the story,
It's one of those accidental build-up
quote,
situations.
the Airbnb story.
So here's how it went. I think on one episode I said, "Oh, I should tell that my Airbnb story."
Yes.
Forgot. Genuinely forgot.
I think it was the Woman King episode, the first episode we recorded
right after.
you get back. Yes.
And then people were like, "What's the Airbnb story?" And I was like, "Oh, right. Don't let me forget." And then on another episode, I may have said it again.
You said, well, it happened before I went to see Wendell and Wild, so maybe
did.
I save it for that.
Eventually,
episode.
I was like, you know what? I'll save it.
Yeah.
Now, I've been saving what is a small story, but now it has become a bit of a ball of wax.
Yes.
That I have to contend with. It does relate to my viewing of this movie, though, and my experience at TIFF this year.
Now, you say it's a small story, but it does sound like the story is big enough that you cannot tell it alone.
Well, I've decided I'm going to call Shirley Li,
The great Shirley Li,
friend of the show,
past
Shirley
and
Li,
future guest.
past and future guest, because she was with me for most of this.
Okay.
And she's my friend, and I love her.
One of the great people.
She is one of the great people. And so let's call her.
Okay.
Let's see if this works. We're going to call her on air.
New technology
Yeah.
calling on air.
Exactly. This is
Yes.
also just fun for us.
This is fun to see if we can
It can
pull this
become a
off.
call out show.
Oh, yeah.
Not a call in show, call out.
You cannot call in.
No.
We can call you.
I guess we could do a call in show.
Hello.
Oh my goodness. Who's
Oh,
this?
Shirley.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Oh boy, she can't hear me.
Wait, hello?
Oh,
Wait,
she's
can you hear
laughing.
us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, there you go. Remember that guy? The Can You Hear Me Now guy?
Yeah.
Can you hear us all?
I can hear you all.
Wow. Ben, good
You're
job.
going loud and clear.
That's
Great.
beautiful.
Incredible.
Hi, Shirley. It's David, your friend and colleague.
Hey,
Shirley, you're in Los Angeles right now.
that's true.
What's the weather like?
It's brisk. It's chilly for LA. It's like in the 50s.
Is it sunny?
Yeah, it's quite sunny.
All right, sunny Los Angeles.
Mm.
Great. There we go. That's what I wanted to say. You're in sunny Los Angeles right now, and we are in dank, windowless Brooklyn.
It's actually kind of like LA weather here today. It's unseasonably warm.
It is
It's
actually weirdly warm.
52 degrees.
I thought I would call you because we are recording our Wendell and Wild episode, and we are going to tell the Airbnb story. And I don't think you know this, but it's become a bit of a thing on our podcast that I wanted to talk about, the thing that happened at our Toronto Airbnb this year, and I kept forgetting. And now it's been 2 months longer, 3 months, 4 months.
Mhm.
When was Toronto?
September.
3 months. And
Remember, it was my birthday.
it was your birthday. You turned. We went to Mamafuku. Remember that?
Congratulations.
Don't tell everybody.
I shouldn't. Is that a secret? Oh, your age. I'm sorry. We can cut that out.
All right, I'll bleep it. Don't worry.
But we did go to Mamafuku. We went in between Bros and the Woman King.
Mm.
Yes.
Remember, they were like, "We don't have a table for you unless you can finish in 45 minutes." And I was like, "Woman, we have to finish in 45 minutes. We have Bros to see."
They were like, "Can you eat fast?" And we were like, "Challenge accepted." And also, you don't have to accept anything. We only have this much time.
Right.
Yes.
Wait, I just quick aside. I'm sorry. I'm confused. You saw Bros?
Yes, we did. We
but
did.
But I thought straight men were the problem.
We are the problem.
Okay.
Shirley and I were both the problem at Bros. We resolved after seeing it to never tell anyone to see it.
Don't lump him with the problem, David. This is what
No, you're right. It's just
it was
straight
my
men. Sorry.
birthday.
It was your
It was her
birthday.
birthday.
It's not your fault. Okay, so Shirley, you and I went to Toronto's International Film Festival together. We shared an Airbnb in Toronto's beautiful downtown district,
Oh boy, here we go.
right?
Uh-huh.
We were there for work, right?
Yes, this is all true. I'm just laughing because I don't know how much you've built this story up over the past.
I really have built it up way too much considering what it is about to be.
Listeners are now doing the "that's Chappie" meme, but with "that's the Airbnb" at you finally mentioning the Airbnb.
They're doing Leo,
Yeah.
Leo on the couch.
Pointing.
Okay. And Shirley, on the evening of September 11th,
How did you remember that?
2022, yeah, a day that will live in infamy. If you remember, we both got home incredibly late. We both got back to the Airbnb at midnight. You had
Yes.
seen The Good Nurse,
Mm.
I believe,
Mhm.
right? And they had done a thing where they were like, the cast has to leave before the screening, so we'll do the Q&A in advance of the movie.
Always makes sense.
Yes, it was. I was maybe sort of losing my mind. I liked the film fine, right?
Sure.
I
It's a fine
ended up
film.
writing about it. Just like they were like, let's shuffle the cast onto the stage and do the Q&A now before anybody has seen the movie.
Right, without revealing anything about the movie.
Yes, and it was a very vague, just annoying waste of time.
So you're a little strung out. You're a little tired. I believe the last film I saw that day was sex drama Sanctuary with Margaret Qualley, coming to theaters in 2023.
I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay.
Anyway, we're both tired. And the next day, I have to see 3 movies, and then I'm going to drive out of Toronto to New York,
Where you live, your home.
where I live, because I foolishly drive to and from the Toronto International Film Festival, which is long and tiring, but I enjoy it and I hate flying.
Yeah.
And also this year I'd forgotten, I don't know where my passport is right now. So the only way I can cross into the Canadian border is by land because I have an enhanced driver's ID.
Wow. Okay.
This is all true.
Yep.
So Shirley, I'm stressed out about this.
Yes.
And Wendell Wild is screening at 9 a.m.
I'm just remembering you were telling us this story about your passport.
Yeah.
Before we recorded.
Yeah.
Then said, "Oh, you know what? That reminds me. I shouldn't tell you the rest of this. I have a
I'll
good
do
story.
the
I'll save it on
Airbnb
mic."
story on mic.
And then I've been waiting.
So I've set that up for you twice now.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm just setting up that we're both a little tired and stressed out.
How was the house?
Shirley, what's your review of it?
Of the Airbnb?
The Airbnb itself. Yeah, the apartment that we were in.
Let's see. What are the parameters again? I mean, like I would put a 4.9. I'd say
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
comfort, the cleanliness, the communication, all the C's. It seemed great. There was
All
a
the
balcony.
C's.
It was like Toronto, especially downtown Toronto, is littered with these gigantic tower blocks of like recently built condo buildings. And they're all freaking Airbnbs. It's like a problem, I think,
Yeah.
like that the city has. Like they're all just kind of empty,
Yeah.
which is a thing we encountered, Shirley. Would you agree? At this place that we were staying, that was very convenient to the Toronto Film Festival.
Yeah, that downtown Toronto is a Potemkin village. Yes, I agree.
Right. I mean, but as Shirley says, the Airbnb itself, totally nice. Everything you need, all the amenities. Lovely.
Did it have like a sign that said home? They
It
always
did have a weird sign
yeah.
that said like home on the wall.
I'm taking it down a notch to 4.8. There was no coffee. I had to rush out every morning.
Okay.
That's true.
Fair
and
enough.
you got to have your coffee.
I do.
Shirley, would you also say my evaluation of our relationship the second we entered this Airbnb together was that we turned into teenage siblings and were constantly punching each other and so on and being like, you're stupid. Like we just immediately devolved into that. Or you would be like, do you need the bathroom? I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I'd be like, no. And you'd be like, okay. Like we would just do that at each other.
Yeah. It'd be like, I'm leaving for a screening. Is that fine with you?
Right. Anyway, we're home. It's about 12:30 at night.
Okay.
And suddenly,
Witching
as we're
hour.
chatting and winding down,
Mm-hmm.
a loud noise happens in the apartment. An alarm noise. Like a just like that. Just
Okay.
one tone.
One.
Just one. Not in just one.
Okay.
And we were like, what was that? And it came out of like an intercom that was like built into the wall. Like not like your classic sort of smoke alarm that you can unplug.
Right.
because this is like a modern building of modern convenience.
Okay, this was like a 1984. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Shirley, I think we both were just kind of like weird and like,
Yeah.
okay, time for bed, and like went to sleep. Right? Would you agree? We sort of turned in.
I would agree. The sibling comparison is apt here because it was kind of like, we don't have to take care of this. Mom and dad will.
Sure. We were just sort of like, okay. And then it was I think it was every half an hour that would happen again.
Okay.
Just like that.
Uh-huh.
Without warning or explanation. Shirley, who I salute, somehow fell asleep. Right, Shirley? You actually managed to just ignore this.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Well, I think the difference was this was my first in-person TIFF, and I was really worn out.
Yeah.
And I had earplugs.
You had earplugs.
And like I just curled up on the sectional.
You were sleeping on the sofa, right? And Griffin, maybe you can understand this.
Mm-hmm.
Grew to both fear. I knew it was going to happen every half hour because the pattern emerged.
Yes.
So I couldn't get to sleep, partly because it would wake me up, and partly because I was like, it's just going to happen again.
How loud?
Loud, very loud.
Like,
Louder. Like
Louder?
very loud. It's an alert. It was designed to alert you. It definitely wasn't just someone going like, oh, hey, man. You know, like it was like,
Yeah.
But the weird thing was that it was not sustained.
Sure.
So at 3:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
after just hours of this,
Yeah.
I've gone mad.
Right.
I have gone mad.
I almost feel
And
like
I'm also stressed out because I have to drive the next day.
course.
So I've got so much
and
stress.
you don't want to fall asleep on the road.
but you're staring at the ceiling, just waiting for it.
Yeah.
If it were a sustained thing, I almost feel like I have an easier time falling asleep because it becomes
You just make it the sonic bed.
Right.
Right? Like you just get in there.
versus even if it would be sustained for 2 or 3 minutes once an hour
Mhm.
versus one burst. Right. I'm
It
just like
was
that
like
will
sleep
jostle me. It will
deprivation.
shake
It was like
me.
they were like,
Yes.
anytime you're about to nod off, don't worry, we're gonna
Yeah.
prod you again. So at 3:30, I'm just saying that I have gone a little mad, I think.
And Shirley sleeping snug as a bug
Shirley
in a rug.
is as far as I can tell asleep. I'm not like walking over to her and like poking her.
Shirley,
but,
can you
like, she
verify
seems-
this?
I can verify this. I can corroborate the story thus far.
Okay.
Okay, so
Sleeping
at
snug as a bug in a
3:30,
rug.
I've gone mad. I get up and I'm just walking around the apartment going like, what could this be? And I start to get into my head. And this is, I'm a little loosey-goosey at this point.
Mhm.
I'm like, there's a security pad at the
Okay.
front of by the door. And I'm like, is like a door ajar?
Mhm.
Is this like some weird like security system thing I don't understand? So I go over to it, and this is, I want to fully admit, the wrong decision.
Okay.
I start punching buttons.
Oh,
Oh, no.
I don't like look around for how do you control this thing or
Yeah.
like email somebody because it's in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I think I'm just delirious, and I'm like, I can just like I could just turn this off.
You're grumpy, you're sleep deprived, and you just start hitting things.
In my memory, I truly just I was like, this one, no, like, and guess what I did? Activated and armed the security system, which then immediately detected intruders and went off. And so I started a whole new problem, which was the security system was just blaring, like full
Yeah.
alarm. Like,
Yes.
now not
so-
only are you guys not sleeping, the neighbors are not
Well,
sleeping.
here's the thing. There are no neighbors. No one's in this building. This is the thing I really realized. I was worried about that, obviously, but like,
Yeah.
There
no
are
one,
not even other TIFFers staying there?
if there are, they're like spread out.
Okay.
Like, this is a huge building.
There were. I remember encountering them the next day.
Yes, there are a few people.
Surely you remember encountering people with death in their eyes and I hate David Sims printed on a t-shirt?
We're not even, the story's not done.
I remember just the I Hate Davidson's fan club, whatever you call hate club.
They were there, they were there just for the whole week.
They just
Like,
don't like blank shack.
Yeah, exactly. They were prepped.
Yeah, they think we're cops.
So no, but also I think I'm realizing as the security system is going off, is that's not coming out of the intercom that was making the other noise. This is coming out of the security system. So at this point I'm like, oh my God, Shirley is now awake. I mean, right? This wakes you up, right? Shirley,
Can you
cannot-
corroborate this?
Yes, I can verify that. I fully woke up. Well, not fully. That's not the right word. I woke up to a symphony of noise.
If I pressed a button, it would stop it for a second. So I just kept being like beep, 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 like, like just to stop it.
You were DJing almost.
Mhm. This is why I wanted to call you, Shirley. I want your perspective on this. On you like waking up and just finding me like crouched by the front of the apartment.
Wait, I don't remember. Okay, you were crouched.
I
My
wasn't
memory
crouched. I was
is
standing.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wake up and I'm like, what the fuck? I take out my earplugs, which was not a great call because then it was immediately 1,000 times louder.
Right.
And yeah, I get up, I walk over, and I just see you. You're standing in front of the alarm system, the security system. You're wringing your hands. Anybody who knows you can probably picture you just wringing your hands at like fast I've ever seen you
David's
wring them
doing it
before.
right now in front of me.
And I think like what was truly harrowing, it wasn't even the alarm. It wasn't the alarm. It was seeing my friend David not be my friend David anymore. Like you were just like you were a husk of a person. You were like I think what crossed my mind was like you look like you'd been infected.
Yes.
You looked pale,
Right.
and like you were actively falling apart.
Right.
And I think like your soul had left your body.
Right.
That's what I remember.
Right. I think I remember you came and I was ashamed.
Mhm.
I had woken you up. I felt bad. And also I knew I was like, whatever this was, I should not have started hitting this security
Yes,
system.
but you're in too deep now.
But Shirley, I just remember you kind of like, you're like, put your hand on my shoulder. You're like, it's going to be okay. We'll figure this out. And then, I was like, all right, crack the fucking, folder here. Like, let's get this guy's phone number, the host. I hate to do this, but I call the guy, our host at 3:30 in the morning. And he answers the phone. He'd been asleep too. So I feel a little bad about that. Weirdly, he was asleep.
You should feel more than a little bit.
To be clear, I had sent them a bunch of messages through the Airbnb thing.
Sure.
But it was past midnight. Like,
Yeah,
there was no
right,
reason for them
Right,
to
you
read
have
them.
to call. Yes.
I call them. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Hi, I'm your tenant, or I'm whatever, your person in this
your
apartment.
Airbnb or
Right. I've activated the security system. There's an alarm going off. And he was like, oh, we don't use that. Let me like find the code to turn it off. Like he doesn't like know it.
sure.
He's like, it's written down somewhere.
Yeah.
So he gives me that. So, so after, we deal with that problem.
Mhm.
Now, of course, the original problem remains. We're still getting the blare every
That
half
still
hour.
is going.
That's still going.
Does that seem to be only contained to the apartment you're in, or is that unknown?
It's at that point unknown.
Okay.
I'll reveal
Okay.
later what the
Okay. Great.
situation was.
Great.
And I tell him that that's happening too, and he's like, I don't know what that is. That sounds weird. I'll try and look into that, but it's
Sure.
3:30 in the morning. I'm like, I understand. I'm so sorry.
And he's like, I hate you.
No, he was,
By the way.
credit to this guy who I won't name, obviously, but like he was really nice about it.
Okay.
We're done. Surely
Mm-hmm.
you went back to sleep, right?
Yeah, I did. I did kind of just like curl back up. I was out of it.
I think I also finally collapsed and
Mhm.
did sleep for a couple hours.
Humble brag.
Yeah, seriously. Then surely I'm gonna say it's 7:30 in the morning, somewhere around there, right?
I think it was earlier.
It might have been earlier. 6. The sun had risen.
Okay, so you maybe slept a clean 2:30.
Yeah. The alarm shifts from once every half hour to total. Alarm.
Now
Mhm.
it's
Now it is
soundscape.
going,
Okay.
going, and then occasionally a voice will be like, fire, leave building, whatever. These modern fire alarms with a voice.
Yeah, I remember very dumbly asking you if like, oh, should we leave?
Right. Obviously, one feels compelled to leave. And this is when I'm like poking my head. It's the whole floor is doing it. You can tell now.
Sure.
I'm poking my head out, not
Mhm.
seeing anybody. Shirley and I just kind of sit there for a while, just being like, what do we do? I think we're both kind of like, are we in Dimension X? Like, have we both gone mad? Is this a collective madness now? We eventually go to the lobby, Shirley? We must have, right?
Well, okay, I think, hang on, I'm trying to think of the sequence of events. I think
don't
I
remember.
said we need to find out what's going on.
Sure.
Like maybe we should contact the Airbnb person, but then like that wasn't very logical. We were like, why don't we just go? I think you were the one that said, why don't we go downstairs and just find out?
Right. We go to the lobby. They're like, we don't know what's going on. There's no fire. We've called the fire department.
That's what I was waiting for. Okay.
Yes.
No smoke, no fire.
No fire. And they're like,
Mhm.
Sorry, it's the whole floor. You can use like the lounge on like the 35th floor because this is like a fancy condo. So we go up there. I have a nice picture of us.
Okay. It's a picture of
Sleeping.
your legs sleeping in the
There's
lobby.
Shirley sleeping.
I think that's kind of no. This is backwards.
No, we went up there. And then we went down to the lobby. Look, it doesn't matter what the sequence is.
I'm trying to verify the story, trying to tell you the facts, which is I think we went up there first because I had remembered there was a lounge up there.
Yeah.
Labeled the Winter Lounge.
Right.
And then it just seemed wrong to stay there if there, I don't know, was an order to evacuate. That's all.
Right. We go down to the lobby. They're like, we don't know what to do. The fire department shows up. The Toronto Fire Department.
Okay.
A bunch of
Hotties?
friendly Canadian. Huh?
Bodies?
Yeah, they were good looking. They weren't like,
Nothing.
calendar material.
Sure.
They
I
were
mean, there's
good
a reason you
looking.
sat on this story for 3 months.
And they're like, we don't know what to do, which is a real moment.
Yeah.
Where they're like, look, these buildings have these weird alarm systems run by private companies. It's going off for some reason. It was pouring outside, and they were like, it's probably the rain has like short-circuited something.
But they basically think we detect no sign of fire.
Yeah, they're like, there's nothing wrong except for this alarm system is we're not working. And that's not our problem. They're saying it in a polite Canadian way, but they are saying it in a sort of like, you got to call the company.
Yeah, they're saying there's no fire. It's just raining outside.
So at that point, eventually, after all this madness, Shirley, you literally did try to sleep just like in the lobby. It was all very distressing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Wendell and Wild. That's better than this.
What time was the
9 a.m.
Okay.
So I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yes.
I'm actually going to put my clothes on.
Yes.
I may have even showered. No, I don't think I showered like in the fire alarm. That would have been too insane. But I was like, I'm going to put my clothes on and I'm going to walk my ass over to the light box and just watch Wendell and Wild because at least there won't be a fire alarm.
True.
And Shirley, you were like, that sounds good. I'm going to retreat somewhere, right?
Here's the thing, David. I don't think we've talked about. I was kind of genuinely worried about you and afraid of you at the time.
That's why it's good to have her on the phone.
You were the Walking Dead.
Right.
Like you had wrung your hands so much they looked like they were gonna fall off. I was just like, this man is gonna go see a movie. Like
He had wrung his
I
hands to the
guess.
nub. But seeing a movie is the only thing he knows how to do, Shirley.
That's
when
the thing.
chips
I
are
was just
down.
like, you know what? There's a movie. I can go in there.
There's
it's free.
always a movie.
And so I went in the rain to see Wendell and Wild. I got a bagel and a coffee from Second Cup. Shout out Second Cup.
What kind of bagel?
I think it was like a plain bagel with butter. I was like, I cannot handle a
Jesus,
lot. Right
rough
now.
morning.
And I go to the light box and I sit down in Wendell and Wild and I'm like, look, I'm sure I'm gonna have to end up seeing this again because like Jesus, like I'm in no fit state. Wendell and Wild starts. I'm immediately like pretty locked in, and I had a good
Really?
experience
Because it is
watching
an
Wendell and Wild.
incredibly dense.
It's a
plotty
very dense movie. But I remember like walking into the light box and there's the volunteers there. And I'm like, Wendell and Wild? And they're like, yeah, Theater 4. And I'm like, okay. But I'm saying okay to them like they're like Florence Nightingale. Like I'm like, thank you. Thank you.
Like you're checking into Betty Ford.
And, yeah. They're like, I go to the theater and they're like, yeah, just about to start. And I was like, okay, good. And I sit, there's no one I know there. And I'm just sort of like, good. I don't want to deal with anyone right now. Just sit down, watch the movie. I was supposed to see The Whale next. I'm like, my plan was like, I was going to do back to back.
Yeah.
I walk out of Wendell and Wild. Shirley, you had texted me like the alarm has stopped. Like the company came. It's over. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to fucking see The Whale after this.
Yes.
Like I definitely, and I went home and I finally like crashed.
Wow.
And that is the Airbnb story. And the guy refunded us the last night of the Airbnb.
Good guy.
Yeah, he was good.
Can I add an epilogue?
You absolutely
Please.
can.
Which is that you were healed by Wendell and Wild. And during that time, I had gone up to the lounge and I had curled up and I attempted to sleep a little bit more. And then this person came around being like, the alarm's fixed on that floor. You can go back down. I went back down. And my next screening was Banshees of Inisherin. And by this time, I had seen my good friend David, lose his mind. During this whole time, I had continued to try to sleep. I felt like my soul was still inside my physical being.
Sure. You'd held on to it. Right.
I went, I got a Tim Hortons cup of coffee. I go into line for Banshees. And who's in a different line but our mutual friend, Esther Zuckerman.
Shout out.
And she captured the photo of when my soul finally exited my body after this ordeal.
You had been holding on, but it finally caught up to you.
And let me find the photo. Maybe we'll post it. It's a great photo. You look very cute. But you are in line and you are, in my memory, looking up at the sky as if the sky may have an answer for you, and it won't. But there's clearly just this sort of like searching look in your eyes. Let me find it.
This is a self-serving story, but I just want to provide evidence that this was an ordeal, even though you could
Sorry, we just saw the photo.
you can summarize the story as, oh my God, an alarm went off in our Airbnb in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But it's not just that.
No.
That's what I mean.
Something deeper, Brooke.
Yeah.
Shirley, thank you so much for sharing this with us, helping the story live up to its full potential. Can I ask, have you seen Wendell and Wild?
I haven't.
Okay.
You and the rest of America,
Yep.
baby. It's on Netflix if you want to watch it.
Yeah.
Just type Wendell in.
I will.
Yeah.
It's quote unquote available for free, as people like to say about anything on Netflix,
Right.
as if
Pay-
you don't
pay
pay for the service.
$19 a month for or
Yeah.
whatever. Let's see
Um,
how quickly it gives me Wendell. WEN.
Okay.
I will watch it. I'm excited to watch it, and it's been an honor hopping on talking about the Airbnb saga.
Love you,
Always
Shirley.
a pleasure. You're the best, Shirley.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
David,
What?
you know what's not fair?
I don't know. Life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I hone in on one specific aspect of life?
All right. Capitalism.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Keep it going.
here's a tiny little, the smallest of gripes, no less unfair. The fact that Netflix hides thousands of shows and movies from you based on your location and then has the nerve to increase their prices on you.
That's right. They've just raised their prices again. Now, you could just cancel your subscription and protest.
You could.
Or you'd be smart about it. Make sure you're getting your full money's worth by using ExpressVPN, like I do.
See, you might not know that what's on Netflix in your country is completely different from what someone in, say, the UK or Japan has on their Netflix.
And using ExpressVPN, I can control what country I want Netflix to think I'm in. ExpressVPN has over 90 countries to choose from. So every time I run out of stuff to watch, I just switch over to another country to unlock new shows. Definitely do that all the time. Run out of things to watch on Netflix.
You reach the end of Netflix. We all have before.
Yes.
I also like talking about Netflix like it's a person. Like, I understand. You don't want Netflix to know what country.
Well, you know what? It is weird how, like, what's an example of this? Like, I have British friends all the time who are like, oh, I'm watching Game of Thrones on Netflix. I don't
Yes.
know if it's Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Uh,
Rick and Morty, I know, is all on Netflix in
There
the
you go.
UK. When I was there
Exactly.
recently, that's a thing you could watch. And here you got to watch on that
Look.
buggy Adult Swim app.
oh, very annoying. Here's
Yeah.
the best thing.
Yes.
Not just Netflix. You
Mhm.
can use ExpressVPN to unlock shows on other streaming services too.
Yeah.
I like to use it to watch BBC iPlayer. It's free and only available in the UK.
Okay.
Look, if you're a fan of Taskmaster, it's an easy
Your
way to
favorite
watch that.
show. Yes.
ExpressVPN also goes super fast.
Mm.
It works on your phone, your laptop, even smart TVs. You can watch your shows on the big screen with zero buffering. So stop paying full price for streaming services and only getting access to a fraction of their content. Get your money's worth at expressvpn.com/check. Don't forget to use my link so you can get these 3 extra months of ExpressVPN free. That's expressvpn.com/check. expressvpn.com/check.
Turn into the Micro Machines guy there for a moment.
Trying to get it all in there. Can I get a review of the Airbnb story after all that buildup?
I think it was good.
Yeah.
I think it was good.
But it wouldn't have been as fun if I just sort of told that story myself after like a month of buildup, right? 3 months of buildup.
Correct. At
This
this
is a
point,
little more fun to
Shirley
have
I mean, and
Shirley
Shirley's
tag
a delight. She'll always make anything better. I do think, yes, if you had told it solo at this point, it would have been disappointing.
It would have just kind of been like, oh, that sucks. Which was basically the reaction the story gets. Like,
right. We need
by and
Shirley
large.
describing what you
It is-
looked
I
like.
think right. That's fun.
Yeah.
I think to Torontonians, it tells a little bit of a story of like these creepy, weird
Yeah,
condos,
I think it was evocative. Yes. Look,
where it's kind of like, I don't know, man. The alarm's going off. What can I tell you?
look, you put yourself in a difficult position, which is how much you built up the expectations for the Airbnb story.
Right.
Where I think people imagine so many different things that it could be. All that having been said, look forward to the story of the Chappie deal coming 2.5 years from now.
Right. And my Michael Shannon story, which I keep forgetting to
Oh,
mention
sure.
as well. Yeah. I'll just float that
I'll
one.
just see people online say, have I missed it? When did you finally tell the Chappie deal story? Haven't yet?
You haven't. You're waiting.
I'll tell you when I'll tell it. the moment people stop asking about it and forget that it ever was teased.
Look, we have a few things that are in a kind of break glass in case of emergency
It
thing.
has to be a surprise.
But that is how I saw Wendell and Wild
No,
for the first time.
I am impressed. It played well for
It
you
played
under
really
those
well for me.
circumstances.
I think I was really just like, this is not, it's a story. I'm involved. I love these people.
Yeah. So you typing in WEN.
So I'll even give you the, W and E, Wednesday.
Well, this is what I was going to say. It's got the same first 4 letters as Wednesday.
No, you're forgetting how Wednesday is spelled. Wednesday.
Oh,
So WEN, there you go. Wednesday drops off.
I'm the one who's fucking functioning like I had an alarm last night going off.
Seriously.
But that might be helping it on Netflix that it shares the same first 2 letters
I have to
with
imagine.
the most successful television show in history.
But also, I have to imagine if you watch Wednesday on Netflix, surely the algorithm's like, hey, you might like Wendell and Wild. That's another thing we got that's kind of in that zone.
But when people talk about, oh, this new movie just premiered and it's not even on the front page of Netflix, a thing that's often lost is Netflix has crazy algorithms.
They do.
And they're showing entirely different things to entirely different people. Obviously, whatever the quote-unquote empirical top 10 will be the same for everybody, but otherwise what's suggested is different for everyone. What truly astounded me is our good friend JD Amato saying, it has not been presented to me once on Netflix. If Netflix, with all the data it has on JD
I know.
over a decade, has not once thought maybe we should put this in front of this guy, who are they recommending this movie to? They've never presented it to me.
That's a stunning indictment. I agree.
Right.
Yeah,
And I'm like, if Wednesday's a hit, they should be fucking pushing this as a viewers also liked or recommended more films like this.
Well, all I can say is, as you put it, it's available for free
Yes.
to any Netflix subscriber. And that is an audience of 450 million people or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
How many? 250? How many subscribers does that?
Who fucking knows?
And it's a good movie. 250 million.
Let's dig in a little bit to this, because a lot of the context of this movie is the context of Selick's wilderness of 13 years
Yes.
not making a film after making a triumph.
That's the thing that's so weird about it.
Yes.
It's not like this is after Monkey Bone.
No.
After his most successful film,
Yes.
he has forever to not make another one.
Yes.
Look, well,
And a film that has lasted, that it feels like has only grown in reputation. Coraline has, it feels like, firmly like planted itself in the canon.
not some flash in the plan.
They continue to fucking sell merch for it. They continue to reissue it on different fucking DVD. The Steelbook just came out 4K. Had mine pre-ordered. But yes, in short, I think Leica believed that he was going to be their main in-house guy.
He is their supervising director.
Yes.
And in fact, after Coraline, his stated focus is, I'm going to help Chris Butler with Paranorman, our next film.
Right. Which Paranorman rips.
Good movie.
Yeah.
He also had been listed as the future director of a CG film called The Wall and the Wing.
This is when Leica thought they were going to do half CG.
Maybe we'll
half,
do some.
stop motion.
That never materialized, partly, I think, because Selick didn't want to do it, and partly because Leica dropped that idea of like,
And
we'll do CG.
I'm going to just swing to a quick side tangent here. We talked a lot about Will Vinton Studios, the Leica takeover in the last episode, some of which we were correcting ourselves in real time as we dug into the story. There is a documentary called Clay Dream that is fucking phenomenal. I recommend to Ben. Ben watched it as well. I'd not avoided watching it. I knew I'd probably like it, but I assumed it was maybe more of a Sparks Brothers type. Here is an
a full
underrecognized
survey.
artist.
Right. Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go through their whole career and show you all the gaps of it, whatever. It is mostly a documentary about the impossibility of trying to make art within a capitalist system. And the weird balance of people who try to become moguls in order to be able to control their artistic destiny. It is an incredible film. It goes so deeply into the film night Leica takeover stuff. It is basically structured around videos of the depositions of the hearings years after Will Vinton was pushed out of the company. The story is far more complicated than we even relate it in that episode. I highly recommend that people watch it. it certainly provides a lot of interesting Leica context, stop motion as a medium context, all of that.
It only came out last year, right?
It
And
came out
was,
in 2022.
yeah, you're right. It
Yeah.
did. It was.
It's a
festivals
phenomenal
last
film,
year.
and you also get to see all his like early short films, clips, and high def, and it's great.
It's such a like nice nostalgic sort of like take me back to being a kid.
Yeah.
Like I was really into the California Raisins. I forgot I had a toy and would watch the show, I guess.
But also like a pretty brutal, unsparing look at like a country that has no support for its arts, and a man who felt like he had to figure out how to become Walt Disney in
Right.
order to keep an entire medium, an entire art form alive.
He at one point is offered by Pixar to be bought out, and he would be given a bunch of Pixar shares.
Sure.
And this is right before
Things get crazy
Yeah,
for Pixar.
things get crazy. And he says, I would own the most Disney shares if I had taken
would
that
have been
deal.
Right. He would have
become
been
the
Steve
primary
Jobs,
shareholder. He would have been Steve
essentially.
Jobs.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because Steve Jobs eventually basically takes that deal.
Yeah.
There's stories that crazy. It's a phenomenal doc that I highly recommend watching as supplemental material to this whole mini series. But all of this to say, the Leica takeover happens. Vinton is unceremoniously pushed out. They go after Henry Selick, who's like the other giant of
Right.
stop motion, at least in America, right?
Definitely, Yeah.
Artemin is not going to be broken up.
No, they got their own thing going on.
Coraline, they screen it at Pixar. Pixar will often have visiting
Yes.
filmmakers screen their new movies. And Lasseter and the Pixar team flip for Coraline, and they're like, you should be working for us. And then, especially when Coraline comes out and is a big hit, they very quickly, with the support of Disney, go to him with the offer of like, we will let you make your own studio. You can now launch the Pixar of stop motion. Basically, what Selick has tried to do his entire career since Nightmare of like, can I develop an actual continuing studio
Yes.
that can be constantly working on a next film? I can be mentoring new filmmakers to take over as directors on further projects, what have you. Basically, like you can move into Pixar campus in Emeryville. We will give you a wing. It's Cinderbiter Studios. It's your deal. You do what you want to do. Disney will acquire property for you. They acquire what is it? Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard
We're going to
Book?
get into that. Yeah.
We're getting into it. This is all this stuff. But the first thing announced is the Shadow King, right?
Before signing with Disney, he had been choosing between 3 projects: an original story, which may be this, Wendell Wild, an adaptation of a Neil Gaiman book that wasn't Coraline or The Graveyard Book,
Okay.
and an adaptation of an unnamed book that was unlike anything he'd ever made before.
Okay.
Lasseter brings him on, right?
Yes.
Selick pitches everything, and Disney settles on The Graveyard Book,
Uh-huh.
which I guess, whatever, is the game and they decide he should be doing. And The Shadow King, quote, a deliciously magical tale about a 9-year-old New York orphan named Hap, who hides his weird hands with long fingers from a cruel world. Sounds pretty Selick-y. And he meets a shadow girl who makes his hand shadows come to life, and his hands become weapons in a shadow war against a monster that wants to eat New York.
Once again, sounds very Selick-y.
It sounds very Selick-y, in that it also sounds very hard to summarize
Yes.
and package. But
And
yes,
a lot of what he wanted to do was, it's like Dumbo, where like his terrifying, gigantic ears end up becoming this artistic gif.
yes,
These giant, long fingers he has make him the best shadow puppeteer in the world. And a lot of what Selick wanted to do was combine stop motion and like shadow animation, cutout animation.
which sounds cool as fuck.
Right. And they use some of that in this film, Wendell Wild.
They do.
Yes.
But it enters pre-production in 2011. It
Uh-huh.
enters production
Yes.
in 2012.
He's set up at Emeryville. They
It's
roll out the red
working.
carpet. They give him the funding. They've
And
announced this.
Lasseter, to be clear, he went to CalArts with Lasseter. Like,
Yeah.
he knows John Lasseter.
Yes.
This is not some like random pairing here.
No.
They have history.
This is also this period right before Disney starts acquiring shit like crazy, where they were like, how do we expand? And there was that Guillermo del Toro Disney Double Dare You, where they were like, we're giving you your own imprint to make spooky movies. Henry Selick, we're giving you your own animation studio. Like, they seem to be investing in people and trying to form new Pixars artists first rather than trying to acquire pre-existing material.
Right.
This is all shifting at this point in time. The Marvel deal's happening.
Marvel, obviously, it's 2011, 2012. Everything's exploding. In 2012, The Shadow King is shut down by Disney, quote, for creative and scheduling reasons.
Mhm.
The trades report that Selick is just too slow to finish in time for the planned release date, 2013. And also the Graveyard Book was eventually dropped as well. Disney took a $50 million write-down on The Shadow King.
This is what is wild and semi-unprecedented.
Ain't Wendell, but it is wild.
They basically said a year into a 3-year production process.
Yeah, they're like, no.
Right. The movie is like 40% animated.
Sunk cost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
They're like, we'd rather cut our losses now than do anything to try to salvage this. Then what is even more bananas is they go, look, we will hand back to you the 40% of the movie that you have animated and the rights, and you are free to go shop it around and see if someone else will buy it. And he pitches it everywhere, and everywhere passes. There is 40% of a movie that is a follow-up to the man who directed Coraline
I know.
and Nightmare Before Christmas, when he's like on a bit of a
No, he's got yes. I mean, do you think that it's because of the stink of like, well, Jesus, if Pixar have done this, it must we can't touch this.
I do think it was
like
that
the stink of that.
Right.
Like they must have seen that this is unworkable.
Yeah, I think it was truly like quality be damned. Is this thing ever going to get finished?
Right.
Is he going to be the most impossible to work with and deal with? I think he also has burned some bridges by leaving Leica so abruptly, with this sort of feeling of he left them holding the bag.
He's a bit of a bridge burner.
He's a bit of a.
Here's some quotes from him.
Yes.
He says, "It was the tone, a little dark and creepy for them, and I agreed to do it for a certain budget, maybe a third or a quarter of the cost of a big Pixar film, but plenty of money. And the thing was, John Lasseter couldn't help himself. He's used to weighing in and changing and changing and changing. And we went through so many changes in the film that the budget started to creep up, up, up. Between that and the tone, they just decided to abandon ship." Now, this is Selick's quote.
Yes.
I'm sure he is telling his version of the story. I don't know, but he is essentially like it was sort of Lasseter's fault for tinkering.
He's throwing it all at Lasseter right now. Now, this is pure conjecture on my part. Here's how I interpret that, right? Pixar is infamous for having this brain trust.
Yeah.
It's got like the 8 or 10, like sort of
They've been there from the beginning.
doctor, and I mean, at this time,
that
it was
time.
Dr. Bird, Stanton, Lee Unkrich, whoever their top people are at any given part. I guess that's before Brenda Chapman is maybe ousted, although Brave comes out this year. Whatever, right? And they're like very brutal with each other. They watch these movies very critically. They suggest wild changes. And Pixar, they've openly talked about their process is essentially make the wrong movie 20 times until you figure it out.
Right.
It's like failure until you find success by process of elimination. It is a lot easier to reanimate rough CGI than it is with stop motion.
Right.
Where you can have storyboards, you can have animatics, whatever, but once you're animating it, you have to go back and just do the whole thing from scratch. Whereas with CGI, the data exists, you haven't rendered it, you haven't added textures, and you could just go back in and reanimate the models that exist in those spaces.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Selick Pixar at this point has basically honed their tenets of storytelling and what works for them. And Selick does not think along those conventional terms. And they're going, we really think in Act 1, this needs to be set up so with Act 3, this can happen. And Selick is basically saying, I don't take notes. He said this in other interviews, basically.
Right. If he's taking notes, he doesn't really like them.
Right,
And
he's
the
like,
more notes.
this isn't a committee. I'm a director. I'm the director of this movie. And they're like, well, you're part of the Pixar thing now. And we all weigh in on all of this.
In the various quotes JJ's gathered here, he throws some blame at Lasseter for like changing.
He's only really dug into this during the Wendell and Wild
He's been
press
talking
tour.
about it during this
For the
press
last
tour.
10 years,
Obviously.
he's been
more
pretty
available.
quiet
Right.
about it. Yeah.
He says Alan Horn, who was in charge of Disney at the time, Disney Studios, said the movie was too weird. We don't know how to sell this. So he blames him too. In 2013, it was announced he'd revived it with the help of K5 International.
Okay.
That stalled out, who had helped make the Beast of the Southern Wild. That stalled out pretty quickly. Selick says he does have the rights, to this day. He says, I'll owe Disney a little bit of money if we set it up, but maybe it'll get made. I absolutely feel like it would be successful. And, it exists.
40% of it.
He says he has 5 minutes finished.
Interesting.
It's a quote from him from very recently.
Okay.
There may be more unfinished.
Interesting. There's a little bit of footage that's watchable online that's leaked out that looks beautiful.
I mean, I have no doubt, but I also have no doubt that the man takes a long time making movies. And as you say, if you're going to give him notes, that's only going to make everything more complicated.
Yeah, I think there was a hope if this movie connected with the public that Netflix would be like, fuck it, we're in the Henry Selick business. Let's pay Disney $2 million to get the rights back for Shadow King.
Yes.
That's what it sounds like. It's his, but if anyone wants to make it, then they have to pay Disney some
money. But hey,
amount. Right.
with the Shadow King and the Graveyard Book dead, he enters a true wilderness period.
Yes.
At one time, Variety announced that he would be doing a live action adaptation of the 2010 children's book, A Tale Dark and Grim.
Which I just cannot believe
Fizzled.
he would ever want to do live action again.
Eventually, that became a Netflix series, which I've
Okay.
definitely heard of. He has said apparently he might want to make like a live action PG-13 horror comedy. And he says like, you know, I've been looking at comedic horror films because I've been accused of being too dark, but I'm not that dark, not compared to something like Saw.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do like, you know, a horror film that has humor and some social satire. He may be just like, I don't want to do CG.
Yeah.
And I understand that stop motion is just so fucking expensive and complicated and long that maybe I just need to do something else.
Yeah.
And at one point he meets with Leica to discuss doing a different Neil Gaiman book called Ocean at the End of the Lane, which he still says he'd like to do. But that's kind of just like
Leica doesn't take him back.
Well, whatever. Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
happen.
not. Travis Knight says, ultimately, we remain good friends. We talk about projects all the time. You know, kind of a sort of like.
Sure. But it does feel telling that they weren't like, Henry, anything.
Of course. You know, yeah.
Yes.
One last project, he apparently was going to direct the pilot of a Russo Brothers series called Little Nightmares that never came.
That's based on a
video game. Never came together.
Right. But that feels like a very Selicky thing if you look at the artwork for that game.
The genesis of Wendell and Wild is apparently when his sons were little, his sons are grown now, well, they were acting like demons one day. Boy. And he drew a little sketch of them as demons and wrote a little story called Wendell and Wild. And he came up with the basic idea that is the movie and most of the characters, and he put it aside. And then, years later, he was channel surfing. What's on AMC?
Yes.
Rocky again. What's on TBS? The Atlanta Braves. Boring. More of this?
Yeah, I'm giving David the hand signal to stretch out the act out of what's on TV.
Pick like a commercial maybe that was running at that time.
Applebee's. I'm bad at commercials because I haven't had TV in years.
ShamWow.
What's it? Huh?
ShamWow.
Yeah, exactly. Then clicks on the Comedy Central channel. Heard of it?
Yes.
Home of comedy. What's their like catchphrase?
We're laughing. We don't pay Kyle Kinane.
They don't pay him anything.
He's been going off about this online.
Good for you, Kyle. Get paid.
They still reuse his stuff.
He sees Key and Peele, and he says he was dazzled and amazed. By the third season, he was just longing to work with them. And then it hit me. Wendell and Wild, Key and Peele. He really likes the sketch prepared
and
I guess he's just like a double act. They'd be perfect to play the demons. I don't know. He likes the sketch prepared for Terry's, which is like the guys getting on the plane with the 3D printed guns, and they're like, we're going to kill any terrorists.
Right. And the most insane wigs
so
of all
insane.
time.
Which is really funny. And he was like, that's Wendell and Wild.
Does Key and Peele premiere 2010 or 2011?
I definitely remember I lived in Bed-Stuy because I remember seeing, it was 2012.
Okay.
January 2012.
Okay.
And I really, you know what? I remember that's one of the last sketch shows where I was like, well, I'm watching that episode. Yes. Like, I never would feel that way anymore. You know what I mean? Like when like Arturo Castro had his sketch show, I wasn't like, gotta, you know, cue that up. And I'm not even trying to like diss it. I more mean like Key and Peele, I was still like, sketch shows are exciting to me.
Well, that was the
it's
final
like a golden age, a final age, whatever, a diamond age.
Amy Schumer and Key and Peele. Yes, there was a little bit of Renaissance.
I feel like there were a couple others.
Yeah, there were,
and there still are good sketch shows. I mean,
I think like, You Should Leave is like incredible.
I think You Should Leave is incredible. Black Lady sketch show, like, but like it just felt. I guess you know what it really is. It's
Portlandia
like,
was also at the same
Portlandia,
time.
But it's that Comedy Central was still making things that I was like, gotta check that out.
That was a good era
television.
for Comedy Central.
It was.
Creatively.
And what was great for them was the streaming era of TV, which they just shifted seamlessly into.
I think I probably said this on mic, but the thing I heard was that they made a deal for Broad City on Hulu.
Yeah.
and then Broad City like blew up on Hulu.
It did.
Unsurprisingly, it turned out to connect far more with the Hulu audience and the people who are still watching broadcast Comedy Central. And then Comedy Central was like, we fucked up. Hulu's getting rich off of our show.
These jerks.
We are never licensing any of our shows to a streaming service ever again. And then for like 8 years, you'd be like, you should watch Review. It's the best comedy on TV.
Right.
And you're like,
It's
how do I watch it?
The worst app in history.
Right. It literally shuts down every time you go to a commercial break, and then you have to start the episode over again from the beginning. If you try to scrub to a later point, it goes to an episode of Tosh.0.
Right, exactly.
So there's just 8 years of Comedy Central producing the best comedies on television.
Really interesting stuff, and like no one's watching.
And you had to be like, what's your tolerance level for dealing with bad UIs?
I mean, I tried to get through watching Detroiters because you had just like talked it up.
An
so
amazing
much.
show. I
It's
bought
so
it on
good.
iTunes. That's
Yeah,
how I
every-
ended up
I mean,
watching
that's what
it.
I should
Right.
end up doing because I got so frustrated by it. I was like, I can't fucking deal
There
with
was
this
a point
anymore.
where it's just like they have Review, Detroiters, Nathan For You,
Right.
Key and Peele and Schumer were still like tailing off.
Broad City, all this
Yeah.
incredible stuff. Anyway,
Anyway.
he
and that new movie came out that they did.
Oh, with every actor in it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love their current original movies.
Work From Home or whatever the fuck it was
I
called.
mean, I want to revisit
that time.
pandemic at that time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That particular.
And I want to
I
laugh.
want to laugh. It's a thing I
'Cause,
look
you
back
know-
on and want to laugh
And
about.
not only did I enjoy it at the time, but it was so long ago.
I know.
So I've forgotten about it.
And you know who must be even more excited about the existence of that movie? The people who are still working from home. Where it's
They
not even a
love it.
reminiscence, it's like a funny depiction of their everyday reality. I watched The Office, the most successful TV show of all time. The only show bigger than Wednesday.
They would get canceled now.
I can't
Their
even say I
asses
like The
would get
Office.
fucking canceled. You don't even.
No,
like
it's
it
wild
that
because
much.
you watch The Office and I go, I cannot believe the people writing the show thought that Michael Scott was woke and correct at every moment. They would get canceled if they made this. Now, the whole point of this show is that they think everything he's doing is smart.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia airs new episodes every season. Anytime anyone's always like, oh my God, these guys would get. I mean, It's Always Sunny is on right now. It's a huge hit to this day.
Mindy Kaling did a multi-episode arc 2 seasons ago.
On it?
Yes.
Good for her. I think that was probably one of those things.
Oh,
where she was
absolutely.
just
I'm not
being
blaming
quoted
her.
out of
I'm just saying
context.
every fucking episode of The Office is Michael Scott or Dwight says something you should not say, and then another character looks at the camera and says, he shouldn't say that.
Anyway, what was your point about The Office? Oh, just that they would get canceled today?
My point was, when I watched The Office, I go, this is good. The one thing I wish is that none of these actors were in the same room at the same time.
No, don't give me that.
The chemistry,
in-person chemistry.
it's too tight.
You're right. They're reacting to each other too much.
It's not believable too that they're making a documentary.
Work from home.
But
Anyway,
like separate screens.
I mean,
that makes sense.
It was one of those things where I was like, a year into lockdown, I was like, should I watch The Office? I mean, I watched all this other TV.
yeah, I've
Put
rewatched
on one
everything.
episode.
Yeah.
Put on the Dundies. I was like, I'll skip
That's the
season
same one I did.
I put it on and I was like, 10 minutes in, I was like, do not want to deal
Yeah,
with this.
never have to watch this ever
No
again.
interest in this.
No disrespect.
Yeah. I was just
Happy
kind of
for
like, don't
you.
like this vibe.
Yeah, I don't need to ever rewatch this.
Selick likes Key and Peele. That's the
Yes.
point of that bullshit we just did.
Right. He suddenly sees, he's like,
I see Wendell and Wild in front of me.
here's a
right now.
comedy duo
And
that
they'll
you
go
could
big.
build
Be
a
silly.
dynamic around. Here's a modern Martin and
And
Lewis.
fuck, I mean, they've already done it in Toy Story 4. I mean, not when he's at the time, but like, their voice acting has been tapped a few times, right? Isn't there something else they did?
Together?
Is Toy Story 4 the only thing they did
No,
together?
there's another thing they did together, and I'm trying to remember.
Right?
I mean, I just find it fascinating that, I mean, this is what we're going to get into now. But he basically just looks at them as a comedic duo and says, these are maybe stars I could sell a movie around.
Right.
They're comedic personas.
Right.
This movie takes so long to get made that the thing that keeps it in the works, that basically shields it from getting shut down at so many different points in time, is that Jordan Peele ascends to becoming
The continued involvement of major success Jordan Peele.
right. Where now it gets to the point where you're like, this is maybe the last type
They
of.
played wolves in storks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, let me give you a little bit.
But the fact that this movie is now coming out and it's like Jordan Peele does not perform at all anymore. The last time he performed in any capacity was Toy Story 4, which is now 3 years ago, and even that was like 2 years removed from the previous time he had performed.
Right. He doesn't perform much anymore. But
Right. So this movie like comes into existence based on the idea of building a vehicle for them, and now it's
Well, it's
Go
not
on,
just that
go on,
though,
go
because
on.
you know he is a co-writer of the film.
this is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Look,
He becomes the co sort of creative force.
he finally gets in touch with them.
Yeah.
Keegan-Michael Key is like, "You have a job for me? I can sign the contract right now."
Yes.
The man works a lot.
Yeah. Do you need me to bring my own wardrobe?
Yeah, exactly.
I can sell for poor, local hire.
I have 3 other things that day, but it's fine. I'll just
get 'em done.
be in every place at once
Yeah.
somehow. Jordan Peele is like, well, hang on, you're Henry Selick. I love stop motion animation.
Yes.
Monkey Paw, my company, has this beautiful stop motion opening sequence.
Ted, does Monkey Paw exist at this point in time?
It
No.
might not,
It
but
doesn't.
you know, I'm just pointing that out.
Yes. But he is a huge Selick fan. He knows Selick by
this is
name and
before Get
reputation.
Out, right?
Yes.
And he says like, I'd love to be this movie. I would love this movie to be the kind of movie I would love I loved as a kid. These stop motion films, like, and the other thing. Oh, this is interesting. Did you know this?
Mm.
Originally, the story was about the nuns, and Sister Helly, played by Angela Bassett in this film, was the protagonist.
Okay.
And Jordan Peele was like, Kat should be the protagonist. This movie should be identifiable to kids.
Yes.
It'll be more accessible that way. I mean, this is the whole thing of Henry Selick, where he's like, you know, Lasseter always meddling with me. Meddle. Anyway, with Monkey Bone, I wanted every character to be a 60s, you know, retired pitchman.
Yes.
And with Wendell Wild, I figured the lead character would be a middle-aged nun, not the teen, the plucky teen. And Jordan Peele gave me that note. And as he says, it took a while to convince him, but he was eventually convinced. It's the easiest note in the world, Henry Selick.
Wow. I also think the movie was more thoroughly about the demons at earlier points in time.
Yeah.
That Cat was incidental. She still served the same function in the narrative. But Peele was like, why aren't we asking questions?
Why would
about
this not be the protagonist?
She's interesting.
Yes. And here's another, and this is the story of Henry Selick, I swear to God. Here he is on developing the script with Peele. It was a back and forth. I would take a stab. He would rewrite. He was more big picture, big story. He would get into the details of characters. Sounds like writing, but okay.
Dramatic storytelling.
It kind of went like that. Occasionally, he would take the first pass on a new thought. Here's the quote. He was really good at dealing with studio notes. He would calm me down.
Yes.
He just really needs a guy who's like, I have some clout and you like me and I understand you, so I can kind of like, it's like, hey, they don't want the movie to have the Esso tiger in it. And Henry Selick is like, I'm opening a vein. I'll fucking shoot you.
He had
And then he's like, hey, calm down. Hey, wait, we can figure this out. Maybe the Esso tiger doesn't need to be in it.
He had Burton doing that for him on
I
the
haven't
first
gotten
movie.
over that Monkey Bone.
I know you're obsessed with it.
Yes.
He had Burton doing that for him to a far lesser degree on the second movie.
Yeah.
Then Monkey Bone, he's got no one. And it's
He
like,
had Bill Mechanic and then Bill Mechanic was
Right.
gone.
So
Right,
then
yes.
during the actual miss of making the movie, it's chaos.
Right.
And then Leica, it's like, here's like the biggest independent animation studio that is just going to be hands off and let you do whatever the
But
fuck. you want.
Coraline is the most interesting one where you're like, you know what? It does seem like he was pretty unfettered, and
Yeah.
that is his best film. So maybe I should go fuck myself, and maybe
Sure.
Henry Selick is right all the time. But it's just things when you hear like Jordan Peele being like, hey, the girl should be the protagonist of the film.
Right.
Henry Selick being like, wow, you're crazy. I guess we'll figure it
Wonder, look, I'm sure
out. Like, Jesus.
I am sure there was validity to the idea that like the Pixar Brain Trust was looking at Shadow King in, if not a binary way, through the prism of what had been successful for them and trying to get him to conform to their same storytelling sort of principles, which this is the same time that the Brave thing goes down. It's the same thing where they're just like, she's like, I had this very personal story, and they kept on saying, this is not how we do Pixar movies.
Right.
You know, like this is when the Brain Trust is starting to fall apart a little bit, and it feels like they're meddling too much. Good Dinosaur, all this sort of shit.
More like
That having
Bad
been
Dinosaur.
said, yes,
Bodied.
Kenny Rogers roasted. There's the credit at the end of this film based on the book by Henry Selick, and it's credited to a co-writer. The book was never published.
Yes. If that book exists in any form, I'm unaware.
I could not find. I was like scanning
No, I mean,
to see
like,
if anyone had
I don't
leaked
even
it
know
online.
if he has the book.
No. And when you hear him talk about it, it felt very sort of amorphous. I would love to hear a more detailed accounting of like, what did Selick have going in? What did Peele specifically pitch? I feel strong elements of both of them.
I think Selick, well, here, I'll give you a little more. I think Selick basically just had the character.
Uh-huh.
That's what it seems like, because he did 9 drafts with Peele.
Yeah.
They get all it together. The real world message of the film about the prison industrial complex, which
Mhm.
we'll talk about a little more, I'm sure. Selick credits
A movie for kids.
yeah, right.
Right.
Selick credits a lot of that to his wife,
Okay.
who for 10 years was an advocate for at-risk youth and special needs kids. I know about that pipeline. There was a lot of research done, but it was really about boiling that down to the essence, and Jordan was always good about that. But it's like that's not a Selick idea per se, or even a Jordan Peele idea. Like Selick
Sure.
is sort of drawing from his wife on
But
that.
it was in the soup.
Yeah, it was in the soup from
Right.
immediately.
And this sort of attempted revitalization of a town, and yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
then in case of Kat and her look, it was influenced by Afropunk, modern movement that goes all the way back to the original, punk movement, he says. But Jordan and me just really liked the look. We really wanted her to look distinctive, all that stuff.
We should talk about the soundtrack too later.
We
It's
will.
pretty fucking great.
Ben was jamming out.
Hell yeah.
And Netflix, the whole thing with Netflix is, I will say that I do hear this from a lot of filmmakers, that once you get the green light, they are
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, go do it.
It took a long fucking time.
Right.
When does Netflix announce this movie?
That's a good question. I'm sure I can find it. I'm not sure when.
15 or 16?
Yeah. It looks like the most crucial thing they cleared with Netflix initially, though,
Uh-huh.
was that the film will get a PG-13 rating.
Right. He wanted to
Like they
Yes.
wanted to lay out can we make this film kind of quote unquote grown up enough? And Netflix was okay with that.
This is an odd case of a movie that feels like it's PG-13 just in sort of thematic and intellectual intensity.
Right.
There's not really anything objectionable that happens in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of an attitude thing.
Yes. Right. Film was made in Portland, Oregon.
Uh-huh.
The most prominent reason for the long production project, I'm reading here that there was some kind of pandemic due to a novel coronavirus.
I'm aware of this, but I still think there was
They had to shut down for 8 months.
longer than usual development time on this movie. From the floating of Selick and Peele are working on something to star Key and Peele, to Netflix has acquired it, to animation is actually starting, was 4 or 5 years versus what's maybe usually a year,
Right.
year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while. Apparently, the wildfires messed with them, apparently.
It felt a little Shadow King-y, where you're like, are we just going to hear at some point that this thing just got shut down quietly?
Right.
And then they finally start animation. The pandemic starts. They shut down. And then these sort of bananas thing about this film is most of this film was animated remotely.
That is
Animators
crazy.
moved sets into their homes
Right.
and were in isolation working on their own sections.
That's bananas.
Yeah.
Selick, post Coraline, is getting more and more hostile to 3D animation. He doesn't like how slick and perfect it is, he says.
Sure.
He said Coraline was maybe a little too smooth, and he wanted to go a bit backwards and show off the artifice with this
Right.
movie, he says. As
'Cause
we mentioned,
Leica has just started cleaning up more and more and more and using more digital aid in these things. He keeps the seams in the faces the entire movie.
right, that's one
I
thing.
think that has become
he left the
industry
seam in,
standard to
right.
erase. And those are the seams from the replacement faces to swap out the expressions.
Correct.
Yeah.
Phil Knight apparently really hated the seam lines, is one thing Selick said. So that's
I
one.
believe that.
Mm-hmm. So that's one reason he gets to do it now that he's free of the Knight
Why wouldn't
family.
you stitch that over with a Nike swoosh?
Why won't you pay a child to do that? What?
Oh.
Okay.
Bad guy.
Watch Clay Dream. It does not make him seem very endearing.
Or
Right.
his dumbass son.
As you've mentioned on his previous episodes,
Yeah.
Nightmare Before Christmas, Selick is kind of bringing the artwork of Tim Burton to life.
Yes.
James and the Giant Peach, you got Lane Smith. Coraline, we talk about Tadahiro Usugi. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Wendell Wild, Argentinian artist Pablo Lobato
Yes.
is the big inspiration for the look of a lot of these guys. You can Google him if you want to sort of get a sense of it.
Yes. His Instagram page has a lot. His work is most known through The New Yorker.
I think it is the New Yorker, right?
He
It's
does a
some
lot of
major-
illustrations
yeah.
for their profiles or their reviews.
Sure.
So he does a lot of these caricatures, but he's got a very unique style that's sort of a Picasso, very shape-based, almost cutout style that is inherently very two-dimensional,
Right.
very flat. And it's like Selick almost perversely picks a design language that he loves that should not be uh, it should not be possible to adapt into 3 dimensions, and goes to his modeling teams and goes like, "Here are Pablo's flat drawings. Figure out how to build this."
Yes, which he does say was quite challenging to
Yes.
do. But the initial thing they do is they take these caricatures of Key and Peele themselves,
Right.
and they turn them into puppets,
Yes.
and they convince Key and Peele, like, isn't this good? Because Key and Peele were apparently like, we don't know if we want to, like, be represented in the film basically as ourselves.
Especially at this point in time, you're like, that's the selling point. No one knows it's the selling point of From the Twisted Mind of Jordan Peele or
Right.
whatever. It's Key and Peele as a comedy duo. You also have to remember, at this point in time, everyone assumes Key and Peele are just going to become like a comedy movie team powerhouse. Like there was this expectation of like, Keanu, great. They'll make their first movie. It probably will work. And then there'll be a new Key and Peele movie every 2 or 3 years. They felt more suited to making that kind of leap than anyone in a while.
Right.
David,
Yeah.
this episode,
Uh-oh.
once again,
What?
brought to
You?
by
Moo?
B.
Movie.
We all know Mubi. It's a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema, but also, most importantly, they're our friends.
I do love movie. I've been watching
Yes.
movies on movie for ages.
Of course.
Each and every film there is hand selected. It's your own personal film festival, streaming anytime,
From
anywhere.
iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there's always something new to discover on Mubi.
Look, the big things they want to point people to right
Mhm.
now are Decision to Leave,
Yes.
Park Chan-wook movie,
Mhm.
which is streaming exclusively on Mubi in the US and many other countries starting December 9th. So
And
it's been up
is-
there for a while.
Inarguably a movie you probably need to watch at least twice.
Exactly. Watch it again. You're gonna. It deepens on the second viewing.
Yes.
It's a really cool movie. You also can go there to check out The Kingdom Exodus, which is the big return of Lars von Trier's infamous series, The Kingdom. That's also exclusively on Mubi in the US, UK, and many other countries.
And Mubi is now the exclusive home on streaming for the original series of the Kingdoms, which have been newly remastered.
What did you
Only
compare it
available.
to?
What did I compare it to?
Yeah, we did this ad read before, and you were like,
Twin
"It's-"
Peaks: The Return.
There you go. Exactly.
Thank
That's
you.
exactly it.
David?
Yeah.
You've been watching the Pusher trilogy?
I
on Mubi?
have. That's on Mubi.
Yes.
Nicholas Winding reference Pusher movies,
Every day
which are really interesting.
is
Yes.
a winding reference. Sorry.
Very good job. Thank you. Look,
First person to ever make that joke.
I mean, it's not impossible. Look, you can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/check. That's mubi.com/check for a whole month of great cinema for free. Mubi.
Great cinema for free.
Mubi.com/check.
It is funny that like Keanu ends up being kind of neither here nor there. And Peele immediately just pivots to like, you know what? I'm going to make the movies I've always wanted to make.
Right.
And like gives up on performing. And now Key and Peele as a comedy duo only exists in animation because animation takes so long. It's like
Right,
the
it's
vestiges of
left
things
over.
they put into work.
Yeah, I don't know what
7
the
years ago.
status of their relationship is. They seem to still be
They
on
did
good
press for this
terms.
movie together.
But it is interesting. Yeah, I just always wonder with that kind of a thing where
course.
it's like, hey, one of you became one of the most celebrated artists alive. And
Right.
the other one of you is Keegan Michael Key, who's like
the
doing
hardest
fine.
working man in show
Like,
business.
but like,
doesn't
what is
have
that
the same.
like?
Yeah, no, it's odd. It's odd. It just felt, especially because the show was so cinematic.
Yeah. Well, that was always what was so magical about it.
Right.
Or like at least plausible about them making movies.
Right. I think it felt like, well, obviously these guys will make a bunch of films. Their natural chemistry when they do the wraparounds, the bumpers, are so good.
Yeah.
I would watch these two guys playing versions of themselves. I'd also watch them playing characters. I could watch them in a genre riff. I could watch them in a low-key buddy comedy, whatever it is. And now it's like, here's this movie where Selick is almost weaponizing. Like, we have to make the characters caricatures of them, almost like it's the Incredible Mr. Limpet or something, where you're like, their face needs to be on screen.
And I'm sure you'll agree with me. It's so interesting the way it looks 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional at the same time. Like,
Yes.
especially with them.
Well, they go through different stages, different puppets.
That's right.
When
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
on Buffalo Beazle, what's his name?
Belzer.
Buffalo Belzer. When they're like on his head, on his belly, they're purposefully making the heads of the puppets as flat as possible.
Right.
And then when they come into the real world, they become more 3-dimensional.
They were Lou Romano, who everyone must know from Didn't he work on?
He was Linguini in
He was Linguini,
Ratatouille.
right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
But he's also one of the best sort of character designers,
Right.
Art directors in
he
animation.
worked on The Incredibles and all kinds of stuff.
Worked on Iron Giant, has worked with Selick before.
Right, particularly because of The Incredibles, which has that similar kind of like 2D, 3D thing.
Yes.
They were like, you'll be perfect for him. They were inspired by things like wooden masks, African masks, stone
Absolutely.
carvings.
Yeah.
That all makes sense.
I think you see a lot of that with her Kat's parents.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And they do use a little CG, just I guess to make some of the stop motion like execute a little simpler. I don't know. It's sort of vague what they
Kind of
used
keeps
it
it to a
for.
minimum. He's not trying to cover up the imperfections of this medium. He's trying to embrace them.
They find Lyric Ross. She's on This Is Us.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know. He really wanted someone who was not like too Disney, I think.
Sure. Which I think successful in that
Right.
regard. Yeah.
And, this movie has an interesting cast. We'll talk about it now.
Yeah.
Got Key and Peele.
But less of a vehicle for them than you would imagine.
Right. I thought they were going to be
Yes.
all over this thing.
Absolutely.
But they are prominent, obviously.
They
You
are,
have
but they're
Angela
sort of,
Bassett.
they're Beetlejuicy in the movie in that it's like, well, it's really about Lydia.
Right. And they're in it. Yes.
They're
yeah.
the most colorful characters. Yeah.
And then you have like Angela Bassett is a big name. But then I would say pretty much, and Ving Rhames as Buffalo Belzer.
Yeah. Which
I
I
love Ving Rhames.
fucking wolf whistled in the theater when his name came up at the end credits.
100%. But then after that, I feel like he's mostly using character actors like
Yep.
James Hong, Maxine Peake, David Harewood.
James Hung, fascinatingly, the other one who is caricatured off of
He
himself.
kind of looks like James
Oh,
Hong.
it absolutely
Yeah,
looks like
yeah.
James Hung. And it feels like he's, yeah.
It's a big, complicated movie.
It is. Look, I feel like this is one of those episodes where people are going to be like, they're pretending to like this movie because they don't want to end on a bummer, right? And the reality is, I think all three of us really like this movie a lot. However, in talking about this movie, it is kind of hard to not make it sound bad because there are a lot of ways in which I think this film ultimately works in spite of itself because it does a lot of things that on paper sound catastrophic, just in terms of being so dense and so plot heavy that essentially it has to spend the first 2/3 of its running time setting up
There are things
everything.
about this movie while I was watching it the first time that I was just like, did I had entered on time. I was like, did I miss a scene? Was there something explaining who Belzer is or why they live on him?
Because it's this weird contradiction of like, it's both moving so fast
Yeah.
and also an hour and 15 minutes in, you're like, I still think the plot hasn't gotten into
I
motion.
guess the stakes are almost set up now, like
Right.
kind of.
And I'm watching and going, look, this is visually a thrill. It's full of fun ideas. I'm happy he got to make another movie again. Obviously, this thing is a mess. And then there's truly just the point, like 2/3 in, where it clicks and he basically like lays it out. on
And
the
everyone's
table.
there. Everyone's
Diagram-
now ready, like
and
to
you're
be
like,
used.
You know what? Every single character he set up now serves an important function. Every plot thread he set up, every visual idea he set up, like everything does ultimately pay off.
Yes, but it does feel like a movie, unlike his earlier films.
Yes,
Forgetting Monkey Bone, that like a kid could maybe not grapple with.
absolutely.
You'd need to pretty much be a teenager, maybe just below, like 10, 11, 12. Like if I put this in, a 6-year-old in front of this, I feel like they would just lose interest.
I think so
because
too.
it's all like there's just so many new things and it's sort of hard to tell how it's connected.
And even the stuff like Wendell and Wild are the characters that would appeal most to a kid
Yeah.
visually in terms of energy, comedically, and all of that. Your introduction, you're just like, as an adult, it is hard to parse. Okay, they live on the head of a giant demon man who is their father. His belly is a theme park for dead souls.
Yes.
Their job is he's insecure about his hair loss. So they have to rub magic hair cream into his skull
Correct.
in order to grow his hair back. And then they realize that the magic hair cream has the ability to bring the dead back to life. Because it is the cure for baldness we don't have in our society that fully brings things 100% back to life that are dead. It can be used not just on dead hair cells, it can be used on full living creatures.
Any soul that has died. But here's the other thing.
And
you're
all of that
forgetting.
is communicated like just hit the ground running.
But you're forgetting something.
Yeah.
Not just all that. They secretly harbor a desire to make their own amusement
Correct.
park. And that's sort of their quest.
Right.
Their reason for wanting to leave Belzer's hair and or chest.
Also, the reason
Head
they
and or chest.
realized that the hair cream has the ability to bring the dead back to life is because Wendell is Peele.
Wendell is Key and
Okay,
Wild is Peele.
Wild has been eating the cream because it gets him high.
Yeah, it makes him feel all tingly.
It makes his tummy feel all tingly.
Right.
Yes, incredibly complicated.
Yes.
Now the
And
theme
obviously Wild is a sort of like round and sort of cheerful guy, and Wendell is kind of wiry and a little more antagonistic. Yes.
And Wendell's got it. What's interesting is it's like the same dynamic because it doesn't feel like this was the default dynamic they had on the show.
No, they would switch. I mean,
Right.
they were good at it. Yeah.
Toy Story 4 gives them basically the exact same dynamic where the one guy's the motor mouth, high strung idea man, we got to do this. And the other guy's kind of like the good natured stoner.
They're so funny in Toy Story 4. I think they're so funny.
Those characters work so well.
Those
And when that
characters
first
make me
fucking
laugh.
teaser came out, it was them doing the
You were
Liam
like, oh,
Neeson shit.
Jesus Christ.
We were like, come on, is this what this fucking movie's gonna
It
be?
wasn't anything wrong with what they were doing. You were just sort of like, that's all they've got is just like,
They're literally just adopting
it's
a
Key and Peele. I'm
Right.
like, I can watch Key and Peele. Like, why do I need this?
Ducky and Bunny hit.
They're really fun.
And I think they're funny in this too, but it also starts out and you're like, wait, so they're the villains in this? That's kind of surprising to make them the villains. Does that limit how funny they can be? And then the more the movie goes on, you're like, they're kind of innocents.
Yes.
They're not innocent. Like they do bad
No, but they're
things.
babes in the wood. They don't really know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Unlike Beetlejuice, who like operates from a place of like pure malevolence, right?
And Beetlejuice is the classic, like, don't make a bargain with a demon.
Of
Like,
course.
that guy has his own ulterior motives.
Right.
They do too, but their ulterior motive is to make an amusement park.
This is the thing.
Like, that's what they really want to do.
I think this is one of the many things Henry Selick is trying to work through in this movie. Is like they are artists, right?
Yes.
They have this vision of
They
this
have
thing
these
they
paper
want to do.
cutouts.
Right.
Yes.
When they talk about it, it's about how much other people will enjoy it. They want to share this with other people. But unfortunately, their chosen artistic medium involves so much financial capital that the only way to get the thing made is to make Faustian bargains with horrible people. You have to align yourself with the worst institutions, old money, sort of cover your eyes and not look at like who's getting thrown into the furnace in order to allow your funding to go through, right?
Yes.
That's this whole thing. They start like aligning themselves with these horrible cultural forces because they're like, but ultimately the theme park will make people happy, right? It's worth it if. And it's like this is being made by a guy who is his chosen artistic medium is so expensive.
Yeah.
So time and labor intensive.
Right.
That the ask is so huge
Right.
to get it off the ground. There's always going to be something vaguely
You're going to have to make a
unethical.
deal with the devil in some way.
To
or
some
other.
degree.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you got Wendell Wild.
Uh-huh.
They're eating magic hair cream. They want to make an amusement park. They live inside someone's hair.
It does really sound like we're just saying gibberish.
Right.
And they were the thing, especially in those early scenes where I truly was just sort of like, I mean, remember, I hadn't slept,
Yeah.
but I was like, I must have missed something. Like, there's
Well, especially
definitely
as a
some setup here
rule
that I didn't
lover,
see.
like you're just like,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
what is this?
And it's also been enough time since Selick that I think I forgot, like, Henry Selick films always have an underworld.
Yes.
That's just accepted. We don't need to even think about the fact that there's an underworld.
But this is why it's all the more disorienting, is because let's back up like 7 minutes. The first 7 minutes of this film are like about as grounded as Selick ever gets.
Yeah. I mean, is it 7? Really? The whole, you mean her family? Like
Yeah.
that? Is it that long?
I was scanning.
Yeah,
I
okay,
rewatched
yeah.
it again last night.
Me too.
Yeah. I think it's about 7 minutes before the proper introduction of Wendell Wild on the head,
Yeah.
right? Because you start with the cold open in the car. The car crashes into the wall. She's listening to X-Ray Specs on the radio.
Yeah. I mean, the whole fucking soundtrack is absolutely amazing.
Wall-to-wall punk soundtrack,
Yes.
basically.
Kat, her parents own a root beer brewery in
Yes.
Rust Bank, right?
Right.
That's the name of the town.
This kind of like incredible revitalized town with this active art scene, local businesses. And yeah.
And she sees a worm, a 2-headed worm in her apple.
But they're at their
After
like
the
celebration
fair?
of like, look, the fair, this town works. We've done it. We brought such life. We've created a community.
They've referenced the buyout in this opening
The
to
Clax Corp.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And her surprise at the app, she yells, the dad gets distracted. They drive off the bridge. The parents die. She blames
classic
herself.
The kid blames themselves.
Yes.
for the
Very Roald
crash.
Dahl
Right.
opening. She is now an embittered, punky, juvenile delinquent.
The opening credits happen over her escaping from the car, rising to the surface. Her parents are dead at the
Right.
bottom of the scene.
And then she
Right.
names her demons, and then we meet her demons. But then it's like she's going
Right, but
to.
then she says in the narration, like, everyone has their demon, mine have names. And you're
Yes.
like, I'm sorry, where did the demons come into this? Then you go back to like family friend driving her in a van to the girls' school that she has to go to. They take her out of a juvie, right? Picks her up and basically is like, this is your last chance. You have to make this work. I made a promise to your parents. She shows up at this school.
All girls Catholic school,
Uh-huh.
run by an elderly Asian priest
Played by
by
James
James Hong, who's always walking on a treadmill.
Great performance.
He's really,
Really
funny
good.
in this.
Really
I
funny.
love him in this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's just always so funny. Like,
arguably the true villain of this movie.
well, no, the Clax
Well,
Corp
no,
guys.
it's
are
the Clax
true
He's way up
villains.
there, though.
Well, but he sort of is like just a more advanced thing where he's like, he just wants but he's so in bed with bad people
He
to
will
keep his school running.
excuse
Right.
Permit anything. Yeah.
And she is sort of like, they're getting money for her to go to the school, right? Like it's sort
Correct.
of part of it. Like, she's like almost like a work release.
Which is all, I mean, it ties into the whole thing this film wants to say about for-profit prisons and everything. But yes, this school is like the last part of this town that is in any way alive. And even they are basically hemorrhaging money. And by taking in this juvenile delinquent, they accept money as, whatever. Yes.
To be her guardians in
Yes.
a way. Kat meets 3 preppy girls.
Uh-huh.
The main one is called Siobhan.
Mhm.
She's voiced by Tamara Smart, who's on The Worst Witch and other
Okay.
various things. But she is the daughter of the Claxons,
Uh-huh.
who are the heads of this private prison company that run the
David
town.
Harewood, a great performance playing Black Trump.
Yes, Lane
Black
Claxton
British
and
Trump.
Maxine Peake,
Uh-huh.
who I think a lot of people in Britain would know. She's in Shameless. She's in Dinner Ladies. She's in lots of things. She
Incredible
rules.
character design on these
Yes.
three.
She is sort of the Joanna Lumley character design.
Yes.
Like, again,
Yes.
he loves a long, spindly woman.
Right.
There's Jennifer Saunders,
There's
right?
always the ghoulish woman, overly made up. Right. Yeah.
They like Kat partly because Kat saves one of them from a falling brick. Like
Yes.
by
the
having
the
premonition.
three
Right.
three young girls. Yes.
Yes.
Which Raul Naksabwana, who is a trans boy who goes to the boarding school and is sort of isolated away from everyone else.
He's separate, but right.
Yeah.
But like what I just kind of like that, like they're not bullies really.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, hey, welcome to Click, and Kat's like, not interested.
She's disgusted.
Right. I don't
Right.
want to do it.
Right.
But I like that they're like
I do
basically
too.
friendly.
And I think this whole it's similar to the sort of the boredom sequences in Coraline where everyone's kind to Kat. Right?
Yes,
There's just this
as prickly
very
as she is.
quiet sadness.
She has a cool boombox with a big eye on
It was her dad's boombox.
Very cool.
That this family friend is getting back to. This
Ben,
is also
surely you love this boombox with a big bloodshot eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
all right,
It's like so fucking customized and fucking like the era of boomboxes when it was like, huge and it was like a statement that you would walk
I
around
also
with.
love that that's the family heirloom.
Yeah.
It's not like
Right.
she's got a locket with her parents in or whatever. It's like her dad's cool, customized, painted boombox.
And just like his cassette
Right,
tapes
his collection.
of his like punk, like very specific 80s new wave.
And you have 2 X-Ray Spec songs. You have X as well, right?
There's I just had the soundtrack
let me find the
brought up
soundtrack
here. Okay, so you have Death freaking out.
Right, Death. I'm sorry, I was thinking of Death. Yes.
You have the specials, Ghost
Specials,
Town, which
classic.
rules. Some ska.
Fishbone.
Fishbone, of course, which also there's a lot of Fishbone sort of merch featured throughout, the
Right.
T-shirt.
Mhm.
And then, TV on the radio for the big final sequence.
Of course.
there. Yes.
And there's even some newer bands too. The one I wanted to shout out, Special Interests, a great band.
Mm.
Their song "Young, Gifted, Black and Leather" fucking rules. Yeah, it's killer. It's really good.
This is the thing, though, Griffin. It's
Yeah.
like the amount of characters, because it's like she goes to the school. Who's at the school? James Hong is the administrator
Right.
of the school. Angela Bassett is a kindly nun at the school.
Yes.
There's 3 girls who are kind of a clique. Then there's Raul, who
Yeah.
is separate from them, but is also becomes friend to Kat.
There's the old Jewish demonologist in the basement.
Correct. Played by an Israeli actor named Igal Naor.
And a puppet that
Manberg.
feels specifically modeled after late period Marlon Brando.
Right?
I couldn't
Or
stop
something
thinking
like
about
that. It's
how
such
much
a
he looks
distinctive
like.
look.
Yeah.
Perfect example. When Hallie, the nun, goes to see him, and she's like, come on, I know you need to collect your thing. And I'm just
Right.
like, again, did I miss something? Was this addressed? Who is this?
It feels like if in the opening This Is Halloween sequence of Nightmare Before Christmas, instead of being a song, it was 10 minutes of dialogue across 18 scenes where they tried to set up each of the denizens of the town as if they had an important plot function. And you're like, why am I tracking the melting man in the suit?
And then here are some other
Rather than him just being a fun
100%,
background character.
Exactly.
Everyone's being put given a sense of importance that you cannot understand.
Raul's mother,
Yes.
Mariana, who's voiced by Natalie Martinez, is
Right, they
convinced.
cut out to her with her fucking
Yes, she's
red
convinced the
yarn.
Claxons burned down the root beer factory years
Yeah.
ago, and she's trying to figure that out. And she's on the city council or whatever.
Yes.
Then there's the character you mentioned before. I think her name's Miss Hunter, who's played by Tantu
A
Cardinal.
really good performance.
Yeah, who's she's First Nations from Canada.
Mhm.
She's sort of floating around. She's like an old friend who's there to
Right.
help out. There's just this vast web of characters who are all somewhat connected.
And even later, you introduce the doctor who's on the board, along with Raul's mom, and then the dead.
Well, then we'll get to that.
Right,
The dead
it's
council
it's a
people,
lot.
right.
But so when you cut to Buffalo Belzer's head 7 minutes in,
Right.
it's almost disorienting now to have the movie slow down to Henry Selick pure vibes, where you're now this movie's operating on
It's breakneck. Yes. No, it is.
because up until this point it's been very plotty, and Selick is not a plotty filmmaker. He's so much more about mood and characters.
Yeah.
And I think he tells stories. His stories have movements, but he's not really concerned about plot mechanics by and large, right? We talk about something like James the Giant Peach is very Picker-esque, right? Night Before Christmas has one major objective that everyone's
right.
in on.
And then this is just so much plot.
Right. Where you're just has he fucking lost it?
Because we haven't even gotten to that, she then gets a skull on her hand, which is a sign.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's it's already complicated.
Yes.
And then on top of it, you're supposed to get your head around how this demon relationship works.
Right.
Which
Right.
is really complicated and not anything you've heard before. It's not even pulled
No,
from
it's not from
reference material
no,
in any way.
a hell maiden,
Yes.
which is a thing you can be.
Yes.
And that comes with a unique power,
Uh-huh.
but that's different for everybody.
Yes.
A skull on your hand
Uh-huh.
and a connection to the underworld of some sort.
Right. So now she has these designated demons.
Which she doesn't know about,
Right.
but they know about her all of a sudden.
Right. And Wendell Wild didn't force this connection.
No,
The
they just
portal-
identify her when they're in a dream with
Right.
her.
Basically opens up and then they go, oh, we could use her to our ends to help make our theme park thing a reality.
Well, no, you forget it's the Beelzebub.
Then she steals a
that's
stuffed
the Beelzebub.
bear.
Because the bear is some kind of weird possessed connection to the demon world.
she burns the hand on the bear.
Yeah, it is funny.
It is funny.
Anytime, there's a couple times the camera zooms in on the bears in passive. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But she summons Wendell and Wild using the bear and her hell powers.
Yeah.
There's that great shot of them coming up from underneath, and then they go like that.
Yes.
This
so
thing
good.
comes down and it
Right.
diverts them. They're a
Well,
little
that happens
anthill.
later. That's when they're actually rising up to the level.
That's what I'm saying. She gets them. She summons
But
them.
there's that conversation. The first time she has the conversation
They're in a
with them.
dream, right?
And
yeah.
it's I think what they've done is built giant puppets of just their heads, because it looks like the faces are articulated rather than it being replacement face animation. It looks like there's a giant rubber face and they are individually animating the lips and things like that. They look humongous. I know when at the end of the movie, they're all in Buffalo Belzer's hand.
Yes.
They built that to scale.
Yeah.
So they're not cheating and putting smaller versions of the characters in a smaller hand. The hand is 15 feet tall.
And you see some in the credits,
Yes.
some of the classic behind the scenes stuff of those big puppets in the hand,
Which is
and the
incredible.
head,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Did you see the post credits thing where she's
It's
on the
great.
animator's desk? Yeah, it's really cute.
But that's the weird work from home thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So yes, they rise up. They basically realize we have this cream.
Right. They promise we will revive your parents. We have that power to her. That's how they're they're
Right.
getting.
First,
to
they
it,
say to her, like, help us start our amusement park. She's like, you need to help bring my parents back to life. They're like, we can't do that.
Right.
She's like, then no deal. They realize they have the cream.
Right.
They're going to get in trouble if they use it.
There's the whole sequence where they put it on the bug that's squashed and they keep like
Yes.
reconstituting the bug.
Fun.
Very fun.
But your brain is switching between like left brain, right brain shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because anytime you're caught up in the world of the town, it's very literal. It's very like angry, political, pointed stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's a trans character, and so it's like there's just a lot of different like themes and topics going on.
Versus
Yes.
when we're in the underworld, it's like crazy cartoon logic, flights of fancy, Henry Selick getting caught up on visual ideas.
Like,
all
I
which I
don't-
love. It just
Me
becomes
too.
jarring.
But I'm like, who is Buffalo Belzer?
Right.
What is his role in like the spirit world?
Right.
If anything. Or is he just chilling?
Here's the thing. We don't ask these same questions of someone like Oogie Boogie.
No, because he's the boogeyman.
Yeah, it also helps that like Nightmare Before Christmas doesn't start with 10 minutes of like the political infrastructure of a
Well,
small town.
But this is the whole thing. Is
I
it's like,
want to make it clear. I like this movie
me
a
too,
lot.
but it is. I had forgotten, and and then I rewatched the movie. I'm like,
Yeah.
right, the whole city council plot.
Yes.
Right. The movie begins with her parents dying, but then when we return to her, there are characters who are like, in the intervening years, the factory burned down, and we want to deal with that. I'm like, why do I care about this?
This town has died. There are no win.
But
you're
it's
just-
all part of this sort of like, right, this civic loss.
Yes.
Like, this town was good. Now it's bad. It's been taken over by this prison, this private prison
Is
company.
it sort of trying to be like Detroit adjacent-ish? Is that what we feel like?
Maybe. I don't.
Because I just it's hard again to
Like
read.
I said,
I think there
it's
are
like-
many examples.
he said, like, my
Steel
wife works for that
Town,
risk
sort of like
youths.
Rust Belt.
I
maybe.
just, because like the whole idea is like, Kat is sort of maybe on the road to like, oh, she'll end up in one of these private prisons, right? She's a
Right.
juvie already. She's on this sort of like, no one's going to help her.
And
The
she
system
herself
is stacked
is
to do
caught up
this.
in the headspace of I'm doomed. Who should save me? I don't deserve to be saved. Like even when people reach out a helping hand to her, she's like, I'm a fucking lost cause.
Absolutely.
But yes, the brief glimpse of the town you get at the beginning of the movie feels like a utopia.
It was once, right? Yeah.
Right. And then it is this notion of like, what systems in place stopped this? Why wasn't this allowed to thrive? Why wasn't this allowed to exist?
So, first they revive James Hong's character, Father Best, who has been murdered by the Claxons
Yes.
for getting too close to they kill him early.
like in an insane, quick,
Yes.
like without thinking about it too much way.
Right.
Right. Like they're playing golf with him and then they kill him because he was the last witness to the factory fire and they
Right.
drown him.
Right.
Wendell and Wild bring him back to life and then
What's the thing they need him to approve where he makes the crack about, well, you're not going to get those votes unless those members come back to life of the board?
Yeah, I don't
Whatever their
remember.
newest
They
construction,
need
the
something
bigger
approved.
prison.
Yeah, whatever. Right.
Yeah. But he plants that idea.
And again, in the middle of all this, it's been established that Kat is a hell maiden. It's been established that there's a guy in the basement of the school who hunts demons and puts them in bottles.
This movie is just basically for the first 15 minutes saying, let's just put a pin in this and we'll come back to it
right,
later.
right.
Over and over and over again. And you're starting to go like,
Guys,
Henry,
too much.
I'm looking at a lot of pins on the wall.
and it's like I'm holding a plate with a lot of drinks and it's
Yeah.
wobbling.
Right.
They bring back Father Best. They paint his face with makeup, which is funny.
Really funny.
He is a living corpse, but he is basically himself.
Yes.
Sort of works.
Yeah.
I love how when he comes back, he's like, "Yes, I've returned.
Yes.
I'm here again. Don't worry about it." Like, and it's just very silly, and it's starting to get more fun.
Yes.
You know, like now we're getting into it.
Because now it becomes the thing of reviving the dead. They realize in talking to him, they're not going to be able to open their theme park unless they get approval
Yeah.
to build on the land.
Right.
which they can only
they
do-
too need
The dead board members.
they need
The
to
city
revive
council.
the dead members of the city council.
Yes.
And the Claxons are like, well, we need them for our thing, but they can also vote for your thing.
Right.
And so Wendell and Wild are like, okay. And so they bring them back, and it's very funny
Yes.
because they are old beyond old.
Skeleton.
They're skeleton people and they're all different. One of them's like a fucking
They're from different time
admiral,
periods, yes.
right?
Yeah,
They all
right.
have
Yeah.
different outfits.
Yes.
And it's such a clever idea. It's an idea that makes me laugh so much.
Yes.
Like, what if you brought back New York's city council from like the 18th century?
Yes.
And there was someone was like, well, there's nothing in the book that says they aren't, voting members. I guess they have to be listened to. It's funny.
It's very funny.
Where's Kat in all this? Kat also makes them swear some kind of bond to her, kind of
Yes.
by mistake.
Well, she's trying to revive her own parents.
I know, but they're not dealing with that.
No.
It's sort of hard to keep the thread.
Raoul needs to be her witness.
And there's
Or I
things
guess
like
to revive Wendell and Wild. That's what she needs.
but it's
him
like
for.
sometimes they'll just throw out a piece of information where you're like, and you need a witness, and it's like,
Right.
why? But I mean, I understand
But
why you're
okay.
doing this. All
Right.
right, whatever. You need another character to be
That's
there.
the thing. No, that's the thing. When she revives them, that's the whole thing. They get diverted by
Yes.
that weird thing
Right.
that I was saying.
Right.
And so they don't
pop
show
up in the wrong place. She doesn't interact.
So
with
she
them.
doesn't even
Yes.
see them.
Right.
They bring back Best. Then they bring back the council members. The council members start to cause havoc.
Yep.
But then Raoul steals the cream,
Yes.
seeing how it
Right.
works,
Right.
and
right.
revives her parents himself.
Right. Raoul witnessed all of it happen because Raoul is on the top of the building, on the top of the church or whatever. I mean, this is our friends at Podcast The Ride just did an episode on the Kingdom Hearts franchise.
Did they? Oh, I should listen to that.
It's really great.
Yeah.
And they, despite being like theme park people and Disney, people obsessed with the Disney company, all this sort of shit, had never touched Kingdom Hearts. And it was a thing where like the listeners were like, you have to do an episode trying to wade through this mythology. And a lot of the episodes, the fun of Scott just reading through the rules of the lore of Kingdom Heart, which is so much more confusing than you could ever imagine it to be. Great episode. Everyone subscribe for the second gate. Worth it. But it's a similar thing where you just have to accept every time they tell you. And of course, this happens because of this. In this world, the Heartless, of course, manifest in different worlds. Each tenet of a person's heart is represented by a different princess. They all exist in different planes. Like,
Yeah.
You're just like, that's what the Hellmaiden thing. You just have to accept
Those
that.
are the rules because those are the rules.
Those are the rules because those are the rules. Exactly.
So the parents do come back,
Yes.
and they are nice.
Yes.
But of course, the fundamental thing about this is like the cream only works for so long, and there's only so much of it.
They
so
realize
this is
this.
not an
Right.
infinite thing.
Right. Fairly late. But there's the great scene where Kat goes back to her childhood home, and
Yeah.
it's like her
And
finally
they're
being willing
there.
to revisit the trauma, and they're there.
Yes.
And it's like both the exact thing she's always dreamed of and the most nightmarish version of it possible, where her parents are corpse people who just woke up and are like, what the fuck happened to everything?
Yes. She still has barely interacted with Wendell and Wild.
Correct.
And we're like more than halfway into the movie.
Right,
It's an
you're like-
hour and 45 minutes long.
Yeah. You're like this.
And the credits are fairly long.
Yeah, this movie is like split off into two halves that barely touch each other, and they just seemingly keep on adding more things to the plate. And then there's the moment where the whole thing fucking finally clicks,
Yeah.
which I think is when the daughter goes and confronts her parents.
Yeah, it's like Siobhan goes to see her parents. She discovers their lies,
Right.
I guess. Like they're like, oh, these private prisons are nice. And it's like, no, you pack in more people, you get more money. It's like,
You get money from the
Google
government.
the
worst
prison
that
industrial
connections are-
complex,
Right.
fellas.
Right. And they're like, it doesn't benefit anyone to have a town with a thriving Black community. It does not help anyone to have an art scene. It does not help anyone.
But it's also like, we don't care about rehabilitating people in these prisons.
That's the biggest thing.
Having them in here is the money.
Oh no,
Right.
these people are fucking monsters.
Yes.
They look at human beings in a way that like it's alarming.
Yeah, but luckily this is a fantasy film.
It's a fantasy film with no basis in reality.
No, of course not. No, I mean it's like I mean, I'm glad they're he's spotlighting this.
It's a
issue,
very interesting thing to make a film about.
but
Basically,
holy
right.
shit.
They're like, look, if the prisons were successful in rehabilitating people, we
There's
go
no
out of
money in
business. The town cannot have any health to it because then you are giving people opportunities to build lives for themselves rather than having to default.
These people eat babies. That's how bad
They're
they
horrendous.
are. They're like horrendous. Like I like couldn't rewatching it, and I'm like just seeing these characters have a daughter and exist and like have a life. I'm like, these are true monsters.
And they also they deliver this to her in a like, we're finally ready to teach you about the family business. Like, it's not even delivered as this, like, villains, like, great Ozymandias, and here's
Right.
the whole time, you know, like, secret thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I think you're old enough to understand the great way that we make a lot of money. They're so unembarrassed by what they're saying. And they're like, and it's about to get better.
Right. So at some point, Hallie and Manberg.
Yes. Because Hallie has, at this point, confessed to Kat that she too is a helmet.
Yeah, but she's spending the whole movie being like, you have to listen to me. I know how this works. And Kat's like, I don't want to listen to you.
Yeah.
But they eventually are like, you need to sever your ties
Mhm.
with Wendell and Wild, who you've barely interacted with.
Right.
But you've made a promise to them.
You're
so
sworn to
therefore
them.
you're now
Yes.
sworn to them.
So you have to undo that, which is intense.
Yes.
And in doing that, she kind of finally is like getting over the parents' death.
This
Right.
incredible sequence where they like essentially have to make like a blood pact,
Right.
bind their hands together by Rimed, their two demon hands, and then you have this extended like shadow puppet sequence.
Right. Which is really cool.
That is like Kat living through the basic
The car accident.
but also like the things that put her in juvenile detention, right?
Right,
There's the sort of like accidental like death or injury with the staircase. There's all this sort of stuff that makes her feel like she is not worthy of rehabilitation, which is the whole other thing this movie is into, of just like creating the mindset in people that they don't deserve better, that there is no other outcome for them, that there is no way for them to ever build a better life for themselves. You don't want to give people hope. And Kat has so fully bought into this,
Right. Into that sort of way of
right,
thinking.
that she is forced to like accept that. And I think is what is interesting is this movie doesn't want to wave some magic wand and go, everything is fixed. No one did anything wrong. Everything's good. It's like many of the good characters in this movie have both good and bad qualities, and have done
Yes.
bad things for good reasons and good things for bad reasons and what have you. You have like the fucking Claxons, who are monsters who deserve to die in the fiery pits of hell. But like, they don't go like, Kat was framed.
No, I suppose you're right. Yeah, sure. No, she's not whatever. She's a child.
Yeah,
She's
yes.
innocent.
And she's had a hard go.
She's
of
had a
it.
hard go.
I
fucking
mean,
life.
her parents died. She got put into like, the foster
It's
system.
a bad system. This is what the whole fucking movie is about. The whole system's bad. It feeds off of people giving in and giving up, you know?
In severing her connection with Wendell and Wild,
Mhm.
she gains full access to her precognitive powers.
Yes.
Hallie is also kind of like left kind of dead, not dead, but like she's like depleted by the ritual, right? Like she's
Right. Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah.
I think so, yes. Once again, it
There's a
truly
whole
would take this 10 watches of this movie to be able to.
Yeah, I've seen it 3 times.
I watched it kind of recently and I cannot.
No.
What happens is Wendell and Wild steal her parents. They take them to the cemetery.
Uh-huh.
Siobhan realizes that the money the Claxons have been promising Wendell and Wild as seed money for their amusement park
Yeah.
is like fake money. It's
Right.
like Claxon bucks. Right.
Clax
exactly.
Calf, I think
yeah.
it's called. Yeah.
Buffalo Belzer finally bursts out of the ground.
Right.
Having been like searching for his lost demons.
Yes.
But then there's like a mural that Raul has painted
Yes.
that he's been working on for the whole movie.
Correct.
That convinces him like, they're not so bad, my kids. Like, and so he's not going to like squish them. He's going to make up for them.
Right. And there's also this realization of you have chased all your other children away.
Yes, right. That's what, because Wendell and Wild are like his last 2 children.
You've tried to force your own wills. You tried to force your children into being you rather than letting them be who they want to be and follow their own bliss. These are the last 2. And he's like, I need to love my sons for who they are. I need to accept it. I'm not even going to be angry at them using this cream to revive the dead. Oh, by the way, the cream doesn't really work. The hair falls out like almost immediately.
Right. The cream is temporary.
Right. So this is when they find out, everyone's going to go back to being dead.
Bess dies again. And but it's also revealed that the many jarred demons that Manberg has been collecting are
All
Belzer's
together.
children. So
Right.
they are released.
Right. So they can make this sort of deal of like, they can, I don't know, not sedate, but they can appeal to Buffalo Belzer by reuniting him with the family he thought he had lost.
Jesus, this movie is so complicated. And then there's the big sequence with the bulldozers,
Right.
where the bulldozers are going to demolish the town.
Well, the other thing is they realize they only have a certain amount of cream left.
So they
and
do you use that?
Kat's first instinct is get extra time with her parents.
Right. But Raul is like, well, we could use this to like get
No,
testimony.
the dad is the one who says,
Yeah, that's
he's
true.
like,
But Raul's the one who does it, isn't he? I don't know.
yeah,
He
but
goes and,
he's
like,
the one who
revives them.
basically says, like, we have loved every minute we've had with you.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go away eventually, no matter what. You could use the last cream you have to do something to bring this town back to life forever. Which
So-
is get the testimony of the people who were in the fire at the brewery.
So they go to like revive the 3 witnesses to the fire who are
Yes.
dead
Yes.
to testify against the Clax Corp.
After this bulldozer fight, that's awesome.
This
Oh,
bulldozer
yeah.
fight that's a lot of fun.
It's to the TV on the
TV
radio.
on the
So
radio. It's the big sort of final sequence.
You remember whipping ass in his wheelchair.
Is there anything else to it? It's just fun. It just looks cool.
Yeah.
There's just like tons of bulldozers
just fun.
going. And Kat, before her parents die, uses her psychic powers to show them the nice future that Russ Bank is going to have.
Yeah.
And Wendell and Wild say they can have VIP passes to their afterlife amusement park.
Which they pop up in their pop-up book. Buffalo Bells gets it. He sees the vision.
He approves.
He approves.
Normal movie.
very normal. It's sort of about prison. It's about parenting.
You're
It's about
identifying
loss.
correctly, Griffin, this sort of thing of like, you have to let things go. You have to, let your kids be different from you. You
Yeah.
might have to, make bed with the wrong people, but you have to, keep a hold of yourself.
Yes.
There are things running through it, but then it also is just kind of like every 10 minutes, you're like, well, I'm very engaged by how complicated this is.
Yeah.
And I think some people maybe are like, this is too complicated for me to engage with.
I don't think this movie has any dead ends. I don't think it has, split hairs and frayed edges or whatever, like nothing about it feels incomplete. It's just one of those things. There are movies, I find more often they're like the world's biggest sci-fi blockbusters that some people will slam for being corny or overwritten or underwritten or whatever the fuck, right?
Right.
That you and I will defend adamantly.
Right.
And there are things like Inception or Avatar where you're like, you know what? If you're going to make this movie work and you're going to get to the pure pleasure and joy of these triumphant, virtuoso, final act and a half set pieces, you need to just have a lot of inelegant, clumsy, ham-fisted exposition to set up the rules of this universe.
Right.
You're just going to have an hour of making us eat vegetables, just shoving it down our throat, because then you can get to the point where you don't have to explain anything further. And Wendell Wild is a movie that operates like that for almost all of its running time. I would say it works in spite of itself.
A little bit.
I fully
But
like
I
it.
also support the in spite of itselfness.
Me too.
If that makes sense.
Me too. But it is that thing where it's like the whole movie is Inception style explaining to you, well, this is a kick and this is a totem and this is my history and my wife was this and all of that. And you're doing it on like a surprisingly big canvas for an hour and 40-minute animated film, narratively big canvas. When you saw it at Toronto after a perfect night's sleep, and I asked you how it was, you said, I think it's kind of great. It's got a lot of ideas. And that's the thing I just keep on going back to, where it's just like, it's got no shortage of ideas.
I think it's great. I'm a big fan
I do
of
too.
it.
And I think most movies like this, where it's like, oh, they had too many ideas, you feel the excess fat. You feel like this was a thing from a draft from 5 drafts ago that no longer has any place in this movie and it doesn't tie into anything else. It takes a very long time for him to properly weave all the threads, but I do think it is cohesive by the end of the movie.
I agree. I felt satisfied at the end of the movie.
I did too.
A little exhausted. Then
Me
again, I
too.
was tired.
Ben and I saw it in theaters. It
You
was
did.
playing at the Quad for like 5 days unadvertised. There was one other person in the theater, and we walked out and we were like pretty fucking invigorated by it.
Yeah.
Like just talking about the actual things it is saying about society.
Absolutely. It's also a diverse animated movie.
Yeah.
Which felt really like special.
Thumbs up to Selick.
Even
Absolutely.
the way they
Thinking
deal with
about that.
Raoul being trans feels very like understated.
Yeah.
The stupid reactionary fucking go woke, go broke shit that people complain about. I think what is more often a problem is when like movies want to pat themselves
Yes,
on the
exactly.
back for being progressive while actually doing the film, right? And this is just like, it's a reality of the movie. It's basically like stated only through context clues, you know?
Yeah, there's I mean the idea I think is Raul was once part of the clique
Yes.
and now feels different and alienated
Right.
and that's complicated and Kat feels that way too. There's a connection there that's
Yes.
interesting. Feels alienated, to be clear.
Yeah.
Do we say what happens though to the Claxons? They get arrested.
They get arrested because
but-
of the corpses testify against
Right,
them.
but I think the detail I just want to
Yes, hit it.
spotlight
Mhm.
is that they like go against each
Oh
other.
yeah, they immediately turn.
They
Right, of
immediately
course,
turn
right,
on each
yes,
other because
they're-
they're the fucking worst people on
Right,
the fucking
Right.
planet.
There's no one they won't sell out.
right,
Right.
Right.
like immediately.
Immediately. Yes.
I don't know. I think they're great.
Yeah,
I think they should.
They have a lot of interesting ideas.
Yeah, right.
And they deserve a platform.
Selick has said that his future, he's vague about it. He's
Yeah.
basically like, look, I've got some things I want to do. I had a feature I almost did at Leica. Maybe I'll go back to that. He knows he can't wait 13 years.
Right.
And he says, I kind of like the streaming aspect because I don't have to live and die by the opening weekend.
Sure.
I'm hopeful that will be helpful. He has the rights back to the Shadow King. He's got that sort of game and ocean at the end of the lane thing that he's thinking about.
He at least
But he knows he can't take forever if he
got
wants
a
to do
movie
another thing.
finished. Like that is huge for him because I think the Shadow King thing for so long just felt like they won't even let him start something again because the idea of having to take a $50 million write-off on an unfinished chunk of movie is what's scaring everyone else from giving him the green light.
But what a cool title.
Yeah.
The Shadow King. But I will say, on the pessimistic side, there is just that fear of like, wow, this movie didn't really feel like it broke through.
At all.
And I don't think that's like the death of stop motion because like
No.
I do think like Guillermo's movie is breaking through a little more.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of love for that look. Leica has another project on the way, but I do wonder if people will just kind of be like, well, there are people who are a little easier to deal with than you, Henry Selick. So
I'll say this. I don't mean to put the pressure on any sense of, I don't know, cultural, societal obligation. But you and I were just talking about how Marcel the Shell with shoes on has seemingly become the critic's choice for animated. We both feel like Pinocchio is probably going to be the front runner for the Oscar, but at least with critics
would
groups,
be my guess.
Marcel seems to be
Popular. Yep.
yes.
Mhm.
This does feel like a movie that needs some people getting behind it and championing it just to remind people that it exists or let them know for the first time that it exists.
Yes. I mean, I hope it gets an Oscar nomination. I would say right now that is maybe.
It is wild that it's on the cusp because this should
It's on
be
the
a
cusp.
locked
I think there are 3
nominee
locks.
in a year with that was generally pretty bad for animation. The fact that this movie is not a lock is pretty damning of Netflix. You think there are 3 locks. You think the 3 locks are Turning Red, Pinocchio, and Marcel?
I think Marcel's probably
I think now
more
Marcel
of a lock.
is. Yeah.
And then I think I would put Wendell 4th.
Yeah.
And I would put either like the Sea Beast, which a lot of people liked on
It's a
Netflix.
big hit seemingly for them too.
Or
whatever that means.
don't make fun of me, but I hear a lot of good things about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Apparently Puss in Boots: The Last Wish rips.
I remember I was going to something with Ehrlich, and he was like, Emma Stefanski gave the Puss in Boots movie like an A- for us, and I was like, I hear it's good.
It's supposedly good.
So maybe that. There are other things like Lightyear and Strange World that didn't really connect. There's stuff like
No.
The Bad Guys that
Right.
kind of like did all right. I mean, I think Mad God obviously should be nominated, but that feels fringy.
Mad
That would
God.
be my favorite.
Me too.
Thing to see
That was what I
happen.
voted for. At the
It'd be
Critics
great to
Circle.
see 3 stop motion films.
But this is the
nominated.
thing. I voted for Mad God at the Critics Circle because I was like, well, that's the thing I really
I
think.
agree.
And then Wendell, I was sort of my second. What?
Marcel,
More movies should go down.
Mm.
I don't like how movies are always going forward.
I'm just realizing with Marcel, it basically is stop motion primarily. You could have a good category where 4 out of the 5 nominees were stop motion.
Yeah, it's possible.
And they would show a pretty diverse range of films.
Yeah.
That would be my 5.
It's also a lot of work.
That's the thing.
I mean,
just
watching that documentary, like the claim,
you got to watch Cladrian, David.
it's just like, I'm like, what drives a person? What kind of person do you have to be to want to do
And
that?
Wilvin was working in fucking clay.
Yeah.
Like that shit like melts and it smushes. You knock it over, the whole thing's totally smushed.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's just, you have to really be a certain kind of person to just
Yeah.
like be willing to just like sit there and
But that's- you do
meticulously.
that with all these guys, and it's like Phil Tippett, Will Vinton, Henry Selick. They're all different types of people.
Yeah.
The one commonality you hear with them is like, and then they go into some weird Zen flow state when they're animating.
I think the key word is you have to be a fucking weirdo.
you have to be a fucking weirdo.
big time.
Let's play the box office game before we wrap up this series and announce our next series and do our rankings.
Okay.
Number one,
No merch for this movie. Another thing that makes you feel like Netflix.
I understand that in some sense, just because this movie was supposed to come out 2 years ago. Maybe they were just like, this is too big a movie
I think
target.
the only way in which I'm surprised is that it's like, A, visually, this movie looks so great. The designs are so great and all the characters. And B, the amount of money Selick movies have made from merch. For there not to be anything, like not to be fucking t-shirts with these characters on or whatever. You're like, CORALINE stuff is still lining fucking Hot Topic, a store that basically exists as a testament to Jack Skellington.
I have one note I wanted to read.
Okay.
This is Republicans' dream for our future. Ancient racists vote for our future.
It is pretty funny. If the Republicans were like, no. We're a very reasonable party. And we revived several members from the 19th century.
We now know exactly what our founding forefathers intended because we brought them back to
right
life.
here.
Yep.
And there's just a skeleton going like, Number one at the box office on October 21st, 2022, which is the weekend this movie was nominally released. Is the
With
most
no box office figures reported.
Right. Most successful film of all time.
The most successful movie of all time. Give me the weekend again. Sorry.
October 21st, 2022. Most successful film ever made.
The most successful
Got the
film
receipts?
ever made. Of course. Of course. Is this weekend 1 or 2?
Coming out this week.
Black Adam.
Yep. Which opened to, I'm seeing here, Infinity Money. Just a little 8 on its side.
It's funny. Wait, I'm seeing a different report here. It says it was number 1 with pure profit. Should have called it in the Black Adam
Look.
because it got there
Immediately.
immediately.
Look, $67 million. A lot of people would just take the W of having a big opening weekend for your big movie. Other people would throw a 2-month hissy fit on Twitter about it and eventually leak financial documents to a blog to prove that, yes, they made money. Definitely. Profit.
And basically, the documents reveal that the projections that within 5 years, eventually, the total
Make
profit,
money. Yeah, there's
Right.
money to be made
And by the
making
way,
movies.
half of that profit is the amount of money that Warner Brothers pays itself through HBO Max.
People were
to sell
scandalized
the
by
rights.
that. And I was like, that's like
That's how all this
always
shit
how they
works.
do
And they
this.
control like the fucking companies that own the billboard space, so they pay
Yeah.
themselves to buy
Yeah, this
billboards
is
and TV ads. On the
Welcome to late capitalism. Anyway,
This was
the funniest
if people
thing
want to
about
dig into this. I'm sorry, but just Smoking Gun. I can't remember if it was Harry Potter 5 or 6, but the Smoking Gun website like 10 years ago got the full like P&L account of Half-Blood Prince or Order of the Phoenix or whatever the fuck it was, and just explained the way that Warner Brothers made it seem as if that movie lost $150 million so that they didn't have to pay out profit participation.
this is why I like this. I like some people are like, what a pansy move by The Rock to Dwayne
It is.
Johnson,
I mean, he's a
to
candy
release
He's the ultimate candy ass.
to release, basically like to leak stuff to a deadline to basically prove that Black Adam made some money. I'm like, this is good. A movie like Black Adam that was an objective failure,
Yes.
that makes money. This is the thing that we need to start acknowledging that Hollywood refuses. They'll be like, oh, well, the business is in trouble. It's like,
Right.
no, you can release dog shit to
Yes.
no applause and make money.
Well, if you restore the like sort of multi-tentral release,
Yeah.
if you just punt the thing to streaming, you don't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. David, I agree.
Don't
I
you
agree.
like money? You fucks.
Someone on our Reddit brought up when Tom Hanks and Bobby Z
Yep.
were on Charlie Rose show promoting Polar Express, and so many of the headlines around that movie were that it was so fucking expensive, and they were like, "Are you worried?" And Zemeckis just broke down like it is basically impossible for a studio movie to lose money.
Yes.
That was at the time where DVD sales were so strong that they would push any movie into profit.
Right.
And then it's like, and then you sell to pay TV, and then you sell to network TV, a DVD, and then whatever. And all these compressed windows shrunk the ability for any movie to go back into the black. And Black Adam shows you, like, right, if you go through all the steps,
Yeah. You make money.
eventually.
Anyway, number 2 at the box office, opening against Black Adam,
Mhm.
a fairly successful movie star movie.
A Ticket to Paradise.
Yeah, what's the worldwide total on that?
The worldwide, well, domestically, it's up to 70.
It's up to 66,
Okay.
67.
So it gets a 70.
Yeah.
And worldwide, I want to say it made a full hundo.
Exactly. It's made $170 million.
Yeah.
Doesn't it just kind of look like a fake movie?
Yeah, exactly.
It
Guess
doesn't
what?
look like it's
still
real.
made money.
Ben, it
Is it
feels
real?
It feels like a fake movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watching it,
Yeah.
it's probably the most disappointing film I've seen all year because I
Yeah.
wanted nothing more than for that film to be a gentleman's 6.
It's like
And
a
you're like-
gentleman's 4.5.
Yeah,
maybe a
it's
5.
maybe a 5 if I'm being
Yeah,
generous.
Wow.
But I am happy that it exists, and I'm happy that it's
Did fine.
successful. More of this, please.
Here's another film, number 3 at the box office in its 4th weekend. It's made $84 million on a small budget. What's the film?
Smile?
Smile. I'm just so pissed off that in the last 6 weeks,
Yes.
like industry reporting has sort of turned back to like, I don't know, man. I think this whole thing might be cooked. It's like, fuck you. It's been a whole year of success.
Smile?
And suddenly they're like, I don't know. I mean, like this one movie isn't clicking. Strange World. I think it's over, guys. Might as well just put it all on streaming.
Smile was going to go straight to Paramount Plus.
sure was.
It screened at a horror festival. They were like, oh, surprisingly good response. Should we take a flyer on this one? $200 million worldwide. For a movie that
Franchise,
cost 5?
if that. It was just how expensive is Smiling? Not expensive. Okay. Number 4 at the box office, The Flip Side of Smile, the film that was released on streaming the same day it was put in theaters. To the movie still made money, but to a huge detriment for its brand name,
Remind me which streaming service it's on.
Peacock.
It's a Peacock movie. It's called Halloween Kills.
No, it's not.
Halloween Ends.
There you go.
Sorry.
64 million domestic.
Yeah.
Got crushed by Smile. Halloween Ends. Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers were finally. This is it, guys.
Well, but that's not really what the movie was, which people soured on and found out about pretty quickly.
No, yes, people didn't like the movie, but no, but like the marketing of that movie is
I
still,
understand.
like, hey, we got Jamie Lee Curtis
I
and
understand.
Michael Myers. Smile just had smiling.
The word
That's
of
all
mouth
it had.
on that thing was so toxic
It
and
was.
so
It's
fast
not a good- it's
that
not
like
a-
the people who go see the early Thursday night screenings all walked out and they were like, Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers are on screen together for 5 minutes. Fuck this movie. I feel like it curdled immediately. Also, people didn't love Kills.
They didn't love Kills.
And
The
Kills
bloom was already a little off. the
Kind of
list.
overperformed considering it was
But-
also day and date on Peacock. It was surprising
And
it made
was,
that much money.
Like, deeper in the pandemic. But
Yes,
anyway,
yeah.
number 5 at the box office for 2 months, the only family film available to a starved audience that was just like, I guess we'll see this. It's made $85 million worldwide.
I'm trying to remember what this movie is.
The only family
Right.
film
Well, because
released
it
in
was
October.
Legion of Superhero, at least Super Pets, was in a similar zone where it hung in there for so long because no one else was releasing any other fucking thing. Remind me what studio this is.
Paramount.
Lyle Crocodile?
Lyle Crocodile,
Yes.
which Katie Rich keeps telling me is good.
And that Bardem deserves a Golden Globe nomination.
Evan Susser DM'd me being like, you seen it? And I was like, no. She's like, damn it. I saw it and Javier Bardem's really good. I just want to talk about it with somebody. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell
You
you.
gotta watch it.
Also in the top 10, The Woman King, another solid hit.
Yeah.
Made $70 million.
Yeah.
Terrifier 2, another insane thing that made $10 million, despite apparently being like just disgusting.
Just true word of mouth.
Don't Worry, Darling, flawed film.
Yeah.
That made $45 million.
Pièce de merde.
Yeah. Amsterdam, there's no defending that one.
No.
That thing just stunk.
Should I see it though, just to like stare at it?
Yes, go ahead. Why don't you stare at that one?
It'd make you so angry.
Really?
Triangle of Sadness, a Swedish 2.5-hour film about barfing, has made $5 million domestically.
Yeah.
It's actually made some money.
Yeah.
Where the poster is an old lady barfing.
This is what I would say. I would say the problem is that all of the Oscar movies are topping out at that exact number. It's like Triangle of Sadness is doing better than you expect.
Yeah.
The problem is that you're like, oh, but like that's the same number Tar ended up at.
Everyone's saying like the market's gone. And I'm like, that's fine.
5 to 10 seems to be the market for everything other than everything everywhere all at once.
I'm just like, guys, this is not a quick fix thing. Take your goddamn time and put your... No, I'm not ranting at you. I'm ranting at the people in my DMs who work for movie industries.
Down from my throat.
Goddamn. No, I'm like, put the windows back up. Make an effort here. Give people... I have so many people in my life who are like, I wanted to see The Fablemans at Thanksgiving and I couldn't.
It never happened.
Why not?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, because they were actually too scared
Yeah.
to like release it. And then it's like, well, it's on PVOD like immediately. And I'm like, why? And everyone at the studios is like, I don't know, it doesn't really hurt. And I'm like, it may not hurt financially, but like you're hurting your fucking business, you
Yeah.
morons.
Yes.
Sorry. Anyway, that's the box office for Wendell and Wild.
Numbers not reported.
No, who
Has
knows?
never cracked the Netflix 10.
No, right?
I expect this episode will result in the biggest audience
And
boost
that's
it
not
has
us patting ourselves on the
No,
back.
it's how apathetic the promotion of this film has been. I get them not wanting to cannibalize against Pinocchio, that they have like 2 movies in this one category
Yeah.
in the same medium with both acclaimed filmmakers, and one of them's got a lot more Oscar heat on it, a lot more critical adoration, and that's now become their biggest Oscar contender overall. But it's strange.
Now, my top 5 Selick. I don't know what yours is. What's yours?
I'm
a little stuck on the middle. I know my top 2 and I know my
No,
number
no, I know.
5.
I mean, I think I gotta give the hair to Nightmare over
I
Coraline.
figured you would
I think they're
because you're a
both
cock.
masterpieces. I'm not a cuck. I'm not a dumb animation nerd. I'm a big
I'm not
special
owned.
boy. I'm not owned as I slowly turn to a corn cup.
Yes.
It falls into like Wizard of Oz territory for me. where I'm
I sympathize with that.
it,
I'm the
that
opposite.
it there's just some magical alchemical thing with that movie.
Mhm, mhm.
Even if I think Coraline is kind of the greater achievement for Henry Selick auteur.
Sure. Right.
If that
But
makes
no.
sense?
Yeah, no, but you have Nightmare 1 and Coraline 2. I have Coraline 1 and Nightmare
Right.
2. But what's your number 3? I imagine you have Peach.
Yeah, Peach is 3rd, Wendell Wild is 4th, Monkey Bone is 5th.
I have it the same way, but I've
Yeah.
considered putting Wendell over Peach. I just want that on the record.
Sure.
Wait, really? Why?
I don't know. I dug Wendell Wild. Thought it was
That's
cool.
the life for him.
James and the Giant Peach is a more straightforward thing for me. I get why I like it.
Mhm.
Bugs, Roald Dahl, Peach, fun.
Greatest
time.
soundtrack of all time.
Sure, absolutely.
Banger after
Banger
banger after
soundtrack.
banger.
Wendell and Wild, I'm like, oh, there's so much in here that's interesting. Does the
Yeah.
movie function for me as well? I'm not sure. At the end of the day, I'm going for like Peach, maybe slightly more functional, but I don't know. Wendell and Wild's just got so much going on.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
Peach I've watched many, many times, as we've covered. It remains very watchable for me. Wendell and Wild, I was curious if watching it a second time, it would have like a glass onion effect where you're like, knowing where the movie ends up, I have a much greater appreciation for all the setup. I see it all from a different prism.
Yep.
I don't think it plays that way on a second time.
No, it doesn't.
It has less sort of like pure joy rewatchability than the
I
other Selick
encountered that,
movie.
which is a problem for me
Right. It's still
on second watch.
on second watch, it is still very plotty. There's a lot to get.
That was my problem. Was I was like, right, they have to establish this. Right, they have to establish this.
Right.
Like, there were a few scenes where I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
But I like thinking about it.
I do too. I think he's made 4 phenomenal movies, and Monkey Bone is one of the more interesting odd duck bad objects ever that I still even kind of more like than dislike.
Yeah.
Kind of no, I don't need to qualify that. I like that movie.
I kind of do as well.
Yeah.
Ben's mixed.
Yeah.
Ben's a no.
Right. And Justin McElroy is going back to graduate school to get his PhD
Oh
in
my
monkey
God.
boneology.
He's gonna get
Yeah, seriously. I
Bone
did
HD.
like what you pointed out about Monkey Bone, which is the a 90s aesthetic. I've thought about that a bunch
Big
since we
Bad
recorded
Daddy.
the episode.
Mhm.
But it's just like something about it's like it's swing,
Yeah,
revival, and it's
We're in Smash Mouth all of a sudden.
yeah, and it's chain wallets.
That whole movie's wearing a fedora.
It really
You know
is.
what's a weird thing in that movie we forgot to talk about?
What?
I mean, because we'd already gone long and talked a lot about the strangeness of that film. The whole end sequence where Chris Kattan and Brendan Fraser are fighting, holding onto the strings of a giant monkey bone like Thanksgiving Day balloon,
Yep.
right? And it looks like, I don't know how they did this or if this was intentional or not, but it like looks like rear projection more than green screen.
Mm.
It looks like deliberately artificially
Right,
like they're
right,
just in front of a
old-fashioned.
screen kind of shit. I swear to God, that whole final sequence, they start styling Fraser to look more like a monkey. And in that final sequence, he's got like a unibrow. They have like stuck his ears out further. His teeth have gotten bigger.
That's clever.
And
There's all kinds of visual
fucking
things.
organs are falling out of his body. It's like, that's right. That's what you want out of a live action Henry Selick movie.
I agree.
I don't know. Weird film. I hope people watched it.
Super weird.
And I hope this has made you consider Henry Selick.
Consider the Selick.
Consider him as an artist in his own right.
Who will we be considering next, my friend,
Great
before we
question.
leave?
David, it's someone we've been talking about for such a goddamn long time.
And I will say, I basically said next year when we were in the thick of Kubrick, and I was like, oh my God, this is so stressful.
Yes. A lot of
I
pressure.
was like, next year, I'm going to do someone I like. You're going to do we're going to each pick an old fave. And I also kind of have that feeling of like, we just got to get some of these guys off the board.
Yeah.
Some of these will do them.
These
guys.
are both major, we'll do them someday, guys, and major, we push them through March Madness year after year, guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So next we're doing our first British filmmaker. Unless you count Nolan.
Isn't he Irish? Oh, David.
He's not Irish.
Is he not Irish?
Is he not Irish? No.
Is he not
He's
Irish,
English. He's
David?
English. No. They're freaking me out there. And Nolan obviously does count as an English filmmaker, but not really, because like he hasn't really made movies, in England or about England in a long time.
Well,
he's our first proper English director.
And what I was about to do is going to become less funny. I'm still going to do it. I'm warning everyone in advance. I'm still going to do it. It's just less funny now that I know he's not Irish. But
He's
David,
not Irish.
please say the name of the filmmaker.
Danny Boyle.
Oh, Daddy Boyle, the pipes are calling.
Embarrassing for you. I believe his parents may have been Irish. I think he was like born to Irish.
Oh, Daddy
parents.
Boyle.
So there you
the
go.
mini series is calling.
We're gonna do the films of Danny Boyle. A lot of people have been guessing a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Well, wait. Okay, so then are you gonna say yours?
No. Well, should we? No.
It's up to you. We don't have to.
We don't have to.
Let's just stay silent.
Yeah, then we'll do we're gonna do a Griff guy, and then I guess after that we will do whoever wins March Madness.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna keep doing guys we like to do. Some other things we have coming in 2023, though, of course, is the Blanky Awards. M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin, which has been rated R. His first R, violence and language.
Cool. Even cooler.
Cooler.
Fuck.
Which is his first R since The Happening.
Yeah.
Right? Old was a PG-13. We also hopefully are going to have. Well, we're going to do a main feed episode on the new Mission Impossible movie next year.
Right, because
we're
we
going to
covered all the other McHugh films at this point.
We're going to do Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. We're going to do Michael Mann's Ferrari, assuming that actually does come out.
Yes.
I think we'll do Aquaman 2.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever that's coming out.
I think we will.
Assuming that it ever comes out. One of those weird things where they made $1 billion movie and now they're like, should we even release the sequel? I'm like, you probably should.
Fucking this ball and chain.
It's so weird. But most excitingly, Danny Boyle coming up.
Danny Boyle.
All right. So next week.
Sunshine, one of the episodes you talk about since the beginning of this show, the things we've dreamed about doing episodes on. This is maybe one of the last huge, like, Griff and David shared obsession movie.
Absolutely. One of those, like, you know what's good? Sunshine. We're not going to have an interstitial because we just did Avatar and we're doing
a lot of new
soon.
releases.
We got Boyle.
We're not doing
the
any palate
Blankies.
cleanser.
No.
Yeah.
Next week, a little film called Shallow Grave. Enjoy, you miserable, lovely people.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media and helping to produce the show. Joe Bowen, Pat Reynolds for our artwork. I know I've already called out what a good job Pat did on the Photoshop miniseries artwork for Selick. I think in the Monkey Bone episode. But it feels like there's a lot of versatility with the close-up, zoomed-in photo of your face on the James puppet. Has been getting a lot of traction.
People just think it has cold, dead eyes. Maybe I'll do my own podcast about it.
Yeah, cold eyes.
Yep. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds original. Thank you to AJ McKeon, Alex Barron for editing, Lane Montgomery, The Great American Novel for our theme song, JJ Birch for our research. Went deep on the Selick stuff as he always does. You can go to blankcheckpod.com for links to some real nerdy shit, including Blank Check special features, our Patreon feed where we do franchise commentaries. And of course, we're doing Hollywood's biggest blockbuster franchise right now in the month of January, the Kotze Trilogy.
That's right.
Kotze Trilogy. Thrilogy. We should call it the Kotze Thrilogy.
So if you want to see us watch esoteric movies while on CBD dog biscuits.
Ben's chomping on dog biscuits. I should make it clear. We emailed Dadgrass and said, "Can you please send us dog biscuits? Ben wants to eat them on mic." And the response was, "We will send you dog biscuits. I just want to remind you those are not meant for humans,
Or dogs.
and we would like it if you spent more time talking about any of our other products." I was like, "Don't worry, they'll be used on mic."
Crunch, crunch.
Crunch was Ben's response.
All right, we're done. Come on. How
Okay.
long is this episode?
Long enough.
Yeah,
Hey.
exactly. Hey, we love it.
Hey, we love to hear it. Tune in next week for Shallow Grave, and as always, crunch, crunch.